That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
9 steps at a time, Square Station. Smashes it on the sidewalk.
Welcome to the Reunite Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined always by Patrick from A Method to the Madness. A man so serious about this show, he got sick in real life.
It's and then we staged a play of Station 11.
We did.
I'm not going to tell you how it went because I'd rather not relive it.
No, and I think that it's better that it's not recorded. That way it sort of has a sense of being temporary, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's in the spirit of this show, so...
Absolutely.
And of course, we're joined once again by Darth, the pilot on a doomed plane, preparing to accept his fate.
Hello there.
I like that you were like, am I going to engage with this bit? And I saw for a second you were like, nah. Like, it just, that went across your face immediately. That was great. Welcome back, as always, to our continued study of the post-apocalypse genre, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon subscribers who help make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. Today we are talking about the ending, somehow, of Station 11. We made it, boys. It's the end.
Woo!
Hey, I think that this might be too, like, premature to say or whatever, but, I think it's possible the show is very good the whole way through.
Oh, so my last note is Absolute Cinema, probably one of my favorite shows of all time now.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And I gotta tell you, they change a lot from the book in this ending, which I was not expecting. Some really interesting choices from Patrick Somerville. And the other thing I did is someone left a comment on the Patreon being like, why don't you listen to the official HBO Station 11 podcast with Patrick Somerville? And I was like, because I don't want to hear Pat's thoughts. I don't want to hear Patrick Somerville talk about his own TV show. I'm going to have my own thoughts. But the second we get off this recording, I'm going to go binge that shit. Because I do need to know what he thinks.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, well, yeah, so you've never had an issue with that. Like,
I just don't.
Is it just because he's called Patrick? You just, like, you have a mental block there.
We have a Pat. We don't need Pats. No, I just think, like, if you're doing a show, like, I feel like in general, especially in, like, a podcast context, there's so much that you'll accidentally, like, absorb through hearing stuff like that I'm just, like, I want to stay clear of that entirely. Until we're finished with, talking about it. So, but yeah, I had a great time. I was a little bit worried about Darth in these two episodes, if I'm being honest. Because this is where it pretty definitively is like, hey, we're just doing feelings. Yeah, Darth, what about...
Do you remember what I messaged you guys after I watched the penultimate episode?
Yeah, I vaguely.
It was something like if I had 1,000 guesses, none of them would have prepared me.
Dude.
Yeah, for episode 9.
Episode 9 is one of the wildest episodes of television I've ever seen. It comes out of left field and then it goes, we're just doubling. Yeah, we're leaning into this. I don't know what to tell you. Strap in. Yeah. But I mean, but you still had a good time? Like, what's your overall?
It's really hard for me to articulate because I had the same reaction that Pat did, where I was like, this is one of the best shows and I absolutely adored it. But that was in the midst of me saying I didn't like half of the decisions that were made specifically in the last episode, but it was still perfect the way they did it. So I can't be like, I'm not faulting it, but also I'm mildly disappointed, but also blown away, So I've been really torn on it because there was a lot that maybe I just wanted Kirsten to stay like stabbing people, and then she got all nice, and I'm like, no, girl, you gotta go back to the stabbing.
You gotta do the murders, dude.
You've got a talent.
You've got talent, kid.
Yeah, it's not Macbeth. It's throwing knives at people.
She was pretty sick at that.
I mean, in honor of her giving it up, I brought all of my knives with me to honor Kirsten giving up the way of the knife.
Oh, that's good. I love that for you.
Heck yeah.
And I love that for our monetization on YouTube. Thank you, Darth. Appreciate that. Just kidding.
You can
None of these
blur
get
them and pretend it's
monetized.
anything.
We say flew 27 times. None of these get monetized. It's fine. But you can support us at patreon.com/zeroindent if you like what we do, because you know we're not making any YouTube ad revenue. I think I looked at it the other day. I think we made like 40 cents on YouTube from these episodes so far. So it's not where the cash is, boys. Let me tell you.
I haven't got my cut. Where's my cut of that 40?
Where's mine? What would that be, like 11 cents?
Well, you got to factor in the tariffs now.
What would that be, 2 cents?
Yeah. You have to pay the tariff, David.
I was like a digital tariff. I don't know. I went with it.
A digi-tariff. Yeah, that's how we rock and roll, boys. Well, I mean, let's just get into it. It's an easy breezy Sunday
Pregnancy.
morning. We're going to talk about the most chill thing of all time. Some real pregnant women in a very stressful... We'll get there. I think episode 9 of Station 11 might well be somehow the most stressful episode of TV I've ever seen. It's just a lot to process and deal with. So I guess let's get into it. We are first talking about episode 9, Dr. Chaudhry, directed by Helen Shaver and written by Patrick Somerville and Sarah McCarran. Pat, I mean, steel yourself mentally, and then when you're ready, can we please hear the summary?
About a year after the collapse, Jeevan and Kirsten spend their first winter in the cabin. A rift forms between them. Jeevan wants to leave for somewhere more populated. Kirsten doesn't want to leave the cabin. On a scavenger hunt, Jeevan almost gets snatched because Kirsten is reading Station 11. In a moment of weakness or self-preservation, Jeevan tosses Station 11 into the snow. Later that night, Jeevan is attacked by a wolf when retrieving Station 11. The next day, Jeevan struggles toward the cabin on a mangled foot. He passes out as the woman who attacked him arrives on motorcycle. Jeevan wakes up in a department store full of pregnant women. Terry, the doctor, reveals there are 15 pregnant women and she needs a second doctor for the deliveries. Jeevan's foot is amputated. Eventually, Jeevan gives in and decides to stay. Over the next 4 days, Jeevan and Tyler deliver each and every baby successfully. Jeevan and...
Terry.
Surely it's not Tyler.
Terry?
Terry, yeah.
Oh, man, I was having trouble on this one. There you go.
Over the next 4 days, Jeevan and Terry deliver each and every baby successfully. In year 20, Jeevan lives with his wife and children by the river. He's sent off on a house call. It seems at long last, Jeevan has found home again.
Oof, what a ride. I don't even know where to start. Like, I guess we should talk about the Kirsten stuff at the start. I thought this was such an interesting choice to give us essentially the Kirsten cabin stuff from Jeevan's perspective, right? And she's just like, it's so funny. Again, Jeevan continues to be kind of hapless and a little bit bumbling. But Kirsten is just like so ready to do violence and just like, you know, like she shoots the deer with a sniper rifle, which I've written in my notes. Darth has an issue with this for some reason.
It was the wrong caliber. But I had no issue.
I literally was like, I can't tell you why, but there'll be something he's gonna nitpick. And yeah, she's like practicing throwing knives and stuff, which is obviously a prelude to what we're gonna get later. And I guess the friction between them fundamentally is like that Jeevan Jeevan wants to leave, and Kirsten doesn't want to leave the cabin. And what I really like is that like she has like kid logic about it, where there's no reason she wants to stay, she just does. You know what I mean? I feel like a much weaker show might have her be like, oh, we should stay for these reasons. She just like fundamentally just doesn't want to go.
Well, I think as well, like she's obsessed with the comic. Like, you know, she's isolated and able to like sort of do her own thing and be in her own world in peace. And like, you know, they're in a place of relative safety and there's a rhythm of normalcy to what they're doing and stuff like that.
Right.
She just wants to zone out and be a little head in the clouds kid like me.
I was gonna say, isn't that this entire podcast being like, yo,
Yeah.
this is just, I just want to sit down and read a book for once. God damn, is that too much?
Yeah, right? Relatable.
Hashtag relatable. Yeah, I also wonder, you know, the reason that Jeevan gets them into the mess that he gets them in is because he lies on the radio, right? Like he lies. So like, you know, they make radio contact with somebody, and this woman's like, oh, da da da, like, you know, we really need a doctor, like we really need help here, and he immediately, without blinking or thinking, just says, yeah, I'm a doctor. Classic Jeevan. And I mean, this lie is like ostensibly what is going to get them into trouble. And then I've written down here, apparently Frank's nickname for Jeevan is Leander Jeevan. And Kirsten turns to camera and says, and it's the funniest Kid Kirsten line of all time. She goes, "Are you leaving?" And there's a beat, Jeevan, and it's the
Jeevan.
It's the funniest deadpan delivery. I love this kid. It's so good.
Mm.
And can I tell you guys, Jeevan is leaving. You know,
He is. He's not in a great place. He's disheveled as fuck. He's talking to himself. He's like tweaking out.
yeah, he's having it rough.
Yeah, he is having it rough, and you're like, you know, like Kirsten can probably sense that, like maybe an unconscious like development of hers to in this span of time to be the adult in this pair, do the hunting, you know, that sort of stuff.
Well, I also think, like, you know, children are quite good at picking up on, like, especially over a period of time, when like an adult that's responsible for them might be deteriorating. Like when they go on this this scavenging exercise, Jeevan finds like half a stubbed roach, and just immediately smokes it. And I was like, Jeevan, you're on point, dude. Like you can't be high right now. This is the one time where you shouldn't be high. Is like when you're out in the world and you know it could be dangerous and it's cold and that's like the one time that he gets, you know, there's someone there. Now would I have smoked it? Yes.
And I just assumed it was a regular cigarette. I had no clue that it was.
Pat, back me up. That shit was definitely weed.
Well, it's because it looked hand rolled.
Yeah.
Is the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the general
It wasn't
assumption.
like a. Yeah.
If you're hand rolling it, it's probably going to be weed. Because you can just buy well-machined cigarettes. There's no point in hand rolling them. And also, like, I don't understand people that can hand roll stuff while they're walking. I feel like that is, like, next level skills that I just don't have. But anyway,
Yeah,
it's,
that's real stoner black magic right there.
100%. I'm like, that's, I don't know, what are you doing? That's dexterity. I've never been. No, I'm not built like that.
Do you know, Darth? Do you know about the Big Les show?
Enlighten me.
Oh, okay. It's an icon of Australian media. It's like this. It's made in MS Paint, and it's this cartoon show on YouTube made by an Australian guy from like the Blue Mountains, and basically it's a bunch of like Sasquatches that are like always on like all the drugs available in the world, and it's just like the humor is just drug humor, but I love it. And there's this one shot that I always think about where Sassy has like an unrolled, like a paper, and then he just has the weed in it, and then he just goes, and then it's magically rolled. And I think about that a lot.
You're like, that lives in my head rent free. Because if I could do that. That was like when I learned that they make little machines that roll them for you, and I was like, yo, this is the future. Anyway.
Well, our normal Australian show has been Bluey, but maybe with the nephews, I'll try that one next.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to watch that with your kids. I'll be honest.
Get them into it early. Talk to me about this weird. So Jeevan smokes this joint, and then he hits playback on this keyboard, and we get this like, I don't know, montage thing where he. I don't know. It's like this family that's died, but the implication I guess we get as their conversations go on a little bit later is like maybe that like they died after the flu, and it seems like maybe the father, like Mercy, killed his family or something.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't think about anything further than what he said of he just died later than the other two. And then, you know, from the set, you can imagine that, you know, his family died, he was still alive. He was like, fuck it, end of the world. He smoked a spliff, had a recording of his kids thing on the keyboard, and, you know, was just fucking around on the keyboard, and then he just like died. But yeah, I mean, it's an apocalypse trope, isn't it? Like, walk into a house like that is like evidence that, oh, like a couple killed each other, or this person A killed person B, and then themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I've been thinking a lot about, like, on the beach as we sort of get toward the book part of this unit, and like, yeah, maybe I was projecting because I've been doing a bit of like research for that to get our page numbers and stuff, but like I don't know. But then I also can't tell if Jeevan's like amping that up when they're having that conversation, because he's explaining that while he's trying to distract Kirsten so he can toss the comic, like as he's making that decision. So I'm also not sure how seriously we're supposed to take what he's saying as actually like true, or if he's just saying what he needs to say, kind of thing. Yeah, but it is creepy, and like the soundscape is like pretty uncomfortable. It just gets like noisier and noisier, and like louder and louder. I think it does a good job of communicating what you were saying before, Pat, which is like, Kirsten can see that Jeevan's just in a really bad place, and it's only getting worse, type of thing.
And he's also, I mean, at this point you'd kind of have to be probably, but he seems to be very okay around dead people now, which is one of the skills that leads to him being a effective healer.
True. Connecting the dots, Pat. I actually didn't think about that. Yeah. Well, and that he's like okay with blood and stuff because he's cutting up the deer and the venison and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Which I don't know that I could do. I feel like I would be too squeamish. You know what I mean? I'd be like, Darth, you take the knife, you do it.
Hunger's a powerful motivator.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, the big beat here, obviously, is that he tosses the comic. This is such
there's a bigger beat. There's a bigger beat before that, which is when he gets shot in the face with a beanbag.
He does get shot in the face with a beanbag. And yeah, this like motorcycled woman is kind of like this motorcycle figure is peering over him. And so the reason this happens is that Kirsten takes her eye off the ball because she's busy reading. You know? And it's like, you're on Overwatch. Yeah. You gotta be on. That's like me when I'm playing CS and like I'm like, yeah, like I'll take long, and then I get distracted by my phone, and the team gets party wiped, and they're like, dude, where the fuck were you? And I was like, oh, we're doing the text message. Like, it's that level of it.
Since when do you play multiplayer games? This is brand new information.
Me and James sometimes play a CS. We'll do a CS from time to time. Not so much anymore, but we used to.
Yeah, this is news to me.
Yeah. Mostly I watch James play CS, but you know, occasionally I'll dip in.
Okay.
Occasionally I'll be
so
involved.
Yeah, we got you. You're just making stuff up so you sound cool on stream.
Yeah, I need that gamer cred. I need people to know that I play CS. That's the cred that they don't know about. But no, like, and her complete. What's funny too is like this feels like such a preventable problem, and I really like that in TV shows when they go, this is just human error, and it's like preventable human error, and it's clearly her fault. I think sometimes there might be an instinct to like complicate this moment, where, you know, you could maybe have Jeevan to himself like justify it, being like, oh, she's just a kid or whatever, but he doesn't do that. He just fully blames her, which is like fair. And then he does kind of forgive her, but yeah, I not a good time to be reading, you know?
Yeah, well, I think ultimately, like, with the full context of like this episode, like the his motivations, the things he wants to do but can't do, I think it really like speaks to the heart of his character, where like you can tell how much resentment he has toward Kirsten, but it seems like he was never going to leave her regardless, kind of thing. Yeah, which is, and obviously that's like the big reveal is that he didn't leave her. He got snatched, whatever, and he tried to come back.
Right, but then at the same time, like, he would never have left her. But the fact that he was forced to almost like freeze him to leave her in a way, like there's some paradox there of like he would never have done that himself. It's like like a, well, it's not like a toxic relationship, but it's a similar kind of concept of that there needs to be some external force that pushes you to make the choice that you can't make yourself. Because like he wouldn't have left her, and the fact that he's forced to changes that dynamic, and the fact that she leaves as well, she doesn't wait for him to come back. I think that is super interesting as a choice where he's gone for like, I don't know, 4 days. No, she's gone for a day, and he's gone for a day, and she leaves like that quickly.
Are you sure it's that fast?
True.
Yeah, because the woman that he ends up with goes back the next day, the second that he mentions that he had a kid. It might be a couple days, but it can't be much longer than that.
Yeah, but I could also make the argument that if anyone came around, Kirsten would have hid. It's I don't know. Maybe she did leave that quickly.
Actually,
it seems kind of against.
That does make more sense if she did hide, but I mean she does eventually leave anyway because we know that she goes and finds Sarah in the spring, right?
Now I have a thought and then I have a pitch about the whole thing, starting with the woman who shoots him with the beanbag. Am I wrong in thinking that he pulls out some kind of thing and like slits her throat with it, or does he knock her unconscious?
As in Jeevan? Oh no, he just like punches her. He grabs there's like a tire iron that's on the ground that he kind of like clocks her with.
Yeah, that was pretty unclear to me as well. I thought there was like a sniper shot that came. Initially, I was confused when I was like, oh, but Kirsten's not paying attention. But
no, he grabbed what I think it was a climbing tool that I think especially for climbing in ice, and it's like kind of like a hook, and it looked like one of those, and I thought that he like put it right across her throat, and she was dead after that fact.
Christ. No, I think he just bonks her.
If that is the case, then eventually you find out like all the women there are pregnant. So if that was a woman who died, then it was straight up a pregnant woman who got killed, which kind of changes a lot of context here. Or it could have been the woman that he fell in love with and married.
It absolutely is.
Because she was the one always riding the motorcycle.
Yeah, that the second thing is the case. And I don't want to like fucking spoil anything for our next episode of The Last of Us Season 2, but turns out that's a plot point you could choose to use if you so wanted. Killing a pregnant lady for some reason. But anyway.
Well, the other thought that I had was about Kirsten not paying attention and being, and he could have died right then and there. And I think that should have been very much like an on-screen part of her character arc, which we never see. We never see the change where she goes from like a kid who's not scared to a kid who's suddenly feral when she meets Sarah, and she's like already holding the knife ready to kill Sarah, and we never see anything in between. I would have liked this to have been the start of that, where Kirsten is like, oh my gosh, I wasn't paying attention and he almost died because of me. And like you start to see that where she has that realization, and she starts becoming more like, that's the beginning of her worrying about losing people because she almost caused it. But the way that it plays out, it's like she literally did not care that he could have died right then. So I really did not like the way that I don't know if that was, the actress or, the direction or what, but I did not like how that played out. And I wish that she would have felt incredibly guilty And even that could have gone so far as to flip the script for who throws the comic out, and on the way back she's just lamenting about, I almost got you killed, and she's like, this comic did it, and then she throws it away, and it would completely flip how the rest of it plays out. And so when he goes to get the comic for her, he's trying to do a nice thing to make her feel better, and then he ends up getting eaten because of that.
I could see that.
I mean, it changes the story a lot, though. Like feelings wise, motivations wise.
Yeah, like the fact that it's so purely selfish from Kirsten's perspective, like that feels so emotionally honest to me, because that's just kids. Like they just can't regulate in that way. Like she just can't get to that place yet, right? And like I like that it's not. I mean, like I understand what you're saying. I think that would be like a much simpler story to tell. But I love that the show is just like, no, like, there's no value judgment placed on Kirsten's behavior necessarily, except for the outcome in that moment. Yeah, I just think it's so interesting. Like,
could also, it could have been her still being just as selfish, because it's not the idea of like, I almost got you hurt. It's the idea of, I almost lost something. Like, that's how I was seeing it, because that's how older Kirsten always is acting, is like, you are leaving me, I am losing something. And so I'm not saying like if it was like, her trying to be noble or something in this moment. It was just, like, this was beginning of me seeing what I could lose, and it was a very selfish thing for her to react in that way.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. I think you can still, like, I don't know, I feel like the story as it is still kind of implies that a little bit, like, in the gap between leaving Jeevan and Sarah, because like, what she, just because she acts like that in the moment with Jeevan, like, doesn't mean that like in the future when she looks back at that, she like realizes like what she did wrong, and like, and maybe the lesson she takes from that is like exactly what you're talking about, Darth. Like, yeah, like, oh, I could have lost Jeevan that day, and it would have been my fault, and so I should, I need to stop reading this fucking comic book and start like practicing more with knives and stuff.
Well, also she does lose Jeevan that day, right? Like she actually does. Like,
yeah.
That's the other thing, is like she actually does, like. She gets the first moment of like, oh, maybe he's going to die, like, because I fucked up because I was reading. But then ultimately, because of her actions, sort of, it depends who you blame for the moment, but like, she does actually lose him because of this moment where she's not paying attention, and she has to live with that and process it in some way.
I think it goes back to something we've talked about in multiple other stories, from like the Batman Bane trilogy, and from Luke Skywalker. Like, when there's significant character development that happens off screen, I always have a ridiculous problem with it, and I'm like, I wanted to see it happen, and that's pretty much what I'm talking about with this. I'm like, I want to see something in between this normal young Kirsten and then the feral Kirsten that meets Sarah. We don't get the in between version.
Right, you want tween Kirsten. That's what I'm hearing. I think unfortunately they'd have to cast a third actress, and that seems like it would be tough. Yeah, but no, I see what you're saying. I like that we don't know what happens in between, and that's just your mileage is going to vary based on, like you just said, Darth, like based on whether or not you're okay with that kind of gap.
Yeah. If you agreed with me, we would have a problem.
Yeah, if I agree with you, there'd be something wrong in the universe. Let me tell you. But I think I already kind of said it, but I want to reemphasize this. I really like that we get the adult version of all of these arguments, like from Jeevan's perspective, and they're no less petty and they're no less like frustrating. But I like this instinct to be like, Jeevan is spiraling, and he starts talking to Frank, and he starts seeing Frank like. He's just kind of losing it. And that's like, it guess I was expecting when we revisit these scenes, and seeing them all from Jeevan's perspective, that I'd be like, oh yeah, like Jeevan was correct. Like young Kirsten didn't understand what was happening, and like it's like no, she fully understood what was going on, and Jeevan was kind of losing it. And I think that's a really refreshing choice, as opposed to, I think, other stories where they would have the child character have like an incomplete or an imperfect understanding of like what's occurring.
I don't know why, but Jeevan is so relatable in his behavior and like his mood and like I can't quite put my finger on it, like just like his sort of like sarcastic like response to everything, like even to himself, you know, like and yeah, he keeps when he's talking to himself, he keeps talking about how, you know, it's you know, basically his resentment of Kirsten, that he doesn't want to like say out loud or label as resentment. He wants to, you know, unconsciously let that lie so that he himself doesn't have to reckon with the fact that he's resenting like a little kid, you know, kind of thing. Like he's doing some mental gymnastics there. But yeah, he is also saying like, oh, I was just supposed to walk her home, you know, that kind of thing. What else does he want to be doing? You know, like what I you know, he wants to be with other adults in this specific scenario that he's in right now because he's been with Kirsten. But like, you know, it's like, I feel like he is just so like manic and like you know, like disoriented and just that he, I don't know, he actually just like doesn't know what he wants, and his resentment is a bit misplaced, and it may be just like, you know, like a symptom of every other thing that's going on. The fact that, you know, he's living through an actual apocalypse kind of thing, and he just doesn't know how to interpret the feelings he's having and stuff.
I was going to respond that I think that the reason he feels so familiar is because I think his character might be like a personification of anxiety, and because there is so much stuff like his actions also to me feel so familiar, and especially when he's on the radio with the woman and she says we need a doctor and he goes I'm a doctor. Like, I've done that so many times trying to order food. They're like, what do you want? And I'm like, number 6. And I have utterly lost, you know, communication with people. So when I had that thought and I was like, okay, so what if he is a personification of anxiety? And then I think other characters could fit that idea as well. Like Alex could be the personification of just like pure joy. And then Kirsten would be like bravery. And I don't know how much further we could carry that with other characters, but it really seems like that could be a thing here, because some of these characters so specifically are emphasizing like one particular trait. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely like, yeah, I think you're right. Like, it is, anxiety is like the sort of the main thing about Jeevan that I relate to, maybe.
But do you think that, like, I mean, I think that one of the central themes of this show is like this idea of from the comic, which is like, I don't want to live the wrong life and then die. I think Jeevan is perpetually having that experience. But unlike Miranda, he doesn't have an answer for like what the other thing is. Like, he doesn't know what the other thing is he's supposed to be doing, right? And I think that's the trick.
And that's perfectly in line if he had been intentionally written to be, you know, the anxious character, because they are always second guessing. Is this the right thing for me? Should I do this? Should I quit this job? Should I do something else? Is this what I want to do? I don't know.
Right.
And they're constantly having like that internal monologue, just like he's having with Frank. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think like he's just the most relatable guy because he's looking at this life that he's in and he's done all of the things he's supposed to do and he's still not happy, but he doesn't have an answer to like, well, this is what I want. And it's only when an opportunity presents itself that he even considers doing something else, but he's not even going to do it. Like that's the, he is just tragically the everyman where it's like, yeah, you could quit your job and go and do X, Y, Z, but you're not gonna. Like, you're not the guy that takes that risk. You're just, you're leaving Jeevan. You're going to quit at some point and, bounce to the next thing. Yeah.
So do you think if Kirsten had been waiting for him, that he would not have gone with the woman who ended up being in?
I think so. I think that if she's still back at the cabin, I think he goes back. And then he tells himself that he's going to convince Kirsten that, to go with him and to go with these other people. And I think eventually he probably does convince her. But yeah, I don't think he leaves if she's still there. That's my feeling anyway.
I'm just... Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Darth.
It made me really sad because it reminded me of the end of Andor season 2, where she like had to leave him in order for him to keep fighting for the rebellion.
Why are you bringing this up just to hurt me? What are you doing? What's wrong with you? Yeah. Alicia.
Yeah.
I'm watching the because the scene where it's from Kirsten's perspective and she goes out and gets the Station 11 comic from the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't remember if she sees someone leaving. So I'm just watching it again. I don't think she does.
Yeah. I was just wondering about that. Because she should have heard the motorcycle or whatever it was.
I think that the sound is what alerts her, and then she goes out, but she doesn't see anything. So yeah, she hears them driving away, I think.
Right, and that's the night he gets attacked, yeah? By the wolf?
No, that's the night. Well, the morning following the night he got attacked. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. The morning fall.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Speaking of that, I had the most unhinged reaction to him getting attacked.
Okay,
Did you guys think anything? Did you think anything odd about it when it happened?
Just that it jump scared the shit out of me, but outside of that, not really.
I accurately predicted that it was a wolf.
Did you?
Yeah.
You sort of, and you on the couch, Pat smugly being like, "I fucking told you it was a wolf."
Yep. My partner thought it was a bear. Shut her up.
Embarrassing, dude. I would never have thought it was a bear. That's so embarrassing. Go on, Darth.
It was something about like the proximity of it to the camera and the way that it leapt. It looked like it was stretched out into a full-size human body, and I was like, oh, that's a wolf man. We're getting into like mutants now. So for the rest of the thing, I was fully expecting mutants to be running around, and then they're like, oh no, it's just a wolf.
Sorry, how did you get that? Like, you didn't see the wolf or anything?
Yeah, no, you see it when it jumps from one side of the screen to the other, and
it does? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And like it jumps like with its front paws out. It like Superman's across the screen at him, and it, like I said, it was like so close to camera that the size was kind of distorted, and I was like, wow, that is too big to be any animal except like Sasquatch or something.
Yeah, I was like, did you think it was Bigfoot?
No, like literally it was I was like, Wolfman, did they bring in like Marvel or what or what are they doing? And I was like, oh, it's got to be a mutant, so they got to do mutant stuff now. That's fun.
Do I just have to like write a list of stuff that things aren't when we cover them? Is that what I have to start doing? Things this show doesn't contain.
You got to have like a negative prompt word list. Like.
Yeah. And it would be all of the thing is, you could never make that list because it would be such obvious things that you would never ever think about.
Never
You're
even,
like,
yeah.
I didn't know.
Impossible. It'd be like, why would any human being
I didn't
think
know
this?
Yeah. I didn't know I needed to tell you that was a chair. like just a normal chair.
Yeah.
Like
and then you're like on the episode, you're like, yeah, but if you really think about it, the chair, in its way, seems like it's from another dimension. Like, bro, what are you talking about?
This is made me think, like, Darth, when the Star Wars sequels were coming out, like, were you on those theory trains and stuff? I bet you were theory crafting like mad.
Yeah, to an extent. I was not ever as chronically online as a whole lot of people. So it was a lot more of just talking with my limited friend group about what we thought. Especially with episode 7. Past that, it was, they're just kind of making it up.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh-huh. And hey, spoilers, they super were. Uh-oh. But it's fine because ultimate power, etc. It's fine. It ended well, is my understanding. People like the way that all went down. Is that?
Do they?
Is that? Okay. Maybe not. Never mind.
Okay, so at the end of Andor, we see that he has a child without a father. Coming at me with that.
Yeah, I know. Boy, I think there was this like corner of the internet, and I feel like it was like real incel driven that were like really had a problem with the fact that they had a kid, and I was like, guys, go outside, please go outside. Yeah, so I mean, we've kind of talked our way into like the big plot of this episode. So
having kids,
man, this is. I'm gonna do my best to talk about this, but this is just like a lot. So Jeevan wakes up in a department store. My first note on this just reads, "Oh yeah, this place is full of pregnant women. I completely forgot about this. So this is the most. Again, I'm gonna try and do my best here. This is the most wild and practical plan of all time. Where basically, so it's been 271 days since the collapse, and we meet Terry, who's the doctor, and she has this little anecdote. She says, the blackout baby boom was 65. Power fails for 13 hours from Ontario to New York. Exactly 9 months later to the day, there's an enormous spike in births across the region. Maternity wards are overwhelmed. There's only one problem. The story I told you is not true. And I, like Jeevan, have no fucking idea what Terry is talking about.
Yeah. I forgot about that line until he said it, and then I had the same exact reaction, which was, what the fuck does that mean?
I think what she's saying is that there's this idea that this thing happened organically. And her counter-argument to that is this baby situation that she's involved in, which seems to be planned somehow. Like, I just can't tell how, like... Do you know what I mean? Like, because she talks about it like it's a planned repopulation exercise or something. But then it's unclear if these women just happen to organically all get pregnant at the same time, or if they all got pregnant during the end of the world because the world's ending. Time to have sex.
Yeah, the latter. I initially thought, like, because the subject matter of this show and whatnot, I was like, oh, they're in a Jared Leto cult or something. And there's probably one man here and
allegedly
impregnated all these women.
Allegedly a Jared Leto cult.
Yeah, allegedly.
Just in case there's any lawyers watching.
But yeah, that's where my mind went at first. But
what do we?
No, I think it's just
that. Yeah,
I think it's just that everyone started having sex when the apocalypse went down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you guys ever have the thought that this was the missing soccer team?
Oh my god.
Well, no. But my mind did go there because of the soccer team, but like I didn't think it was the soccer team.
Could you man, I would have hated that. That would have been really clever, but it would have been that, like almost like too cute kind of move, I think, for a show like this.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting. You know what? Can I be real with you, Darth? I haven't thought about the soccer team since they left the airport. I don't know if that makes me a bad person.
I've been curious. I gotta say, I'm like, are they living their best life down there at the beach? Like, I want to know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too, but I think probably more likely they just died on the trail or something, knowing this show.
Mm.
There's someone out there on Tumblr who's writing the like slash fic that makes those girls into the girls from Yellow Jackets. You know what I mean?
No.
No, you haven't seen Yellow Jackets? No, that's a joke just for the audience. Then never mind. You haven't seen? You don't know about Yellow Jackets, Pat?
No.
It's another smash hit from HBO, I think. Actually, not sure where it's from, but like a bunch of like a high school girls soccer team. They're in a plane crash, and then it's basically like a mystery box, like Lost, where they're doing cannibalism and whatnot to survive. But like, oh, maybe there's like something bigger happening. Maybe there's a bigger mystery that they're gonna have to pay off at some point, and it's been 3 seasons, and it doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many does it go
doing.
for seasons and seasons? Because that is less appealing to me.
It seems like they don't know where they're going with it. It's every time I watch an episode, I'm like, guys, you should have planned the ending before you started writing this. And they do that kind of. I mean, where it has a leg up on something like Lost is that they have parallel timelines, so you're back in the present with some of the surviving girls as adults, and they're sort of dealing with the repercussions of whatever happened back then. But it, yes, it has the same structural issues as something like Lost.
So it's How I Met Your Mother, just with some cannibalism in there.
Yeah, except it's better than How I Met Your Mother. I just think that like I didn't like How I Met Your Mother at the time, and I realize I'm always the guy that hates everything. I didn't like it at the time, and I've only soured on it in hindsight. But no, it's more. I'm trying to think what it's closer to. I guess it is closer to How I Met Your Mother than Lost. Technically. Yeah. But no, I mean, I just think it'd be funny if someone was like, well, the girls' soccer team, that was the same soccer team from Yellow Jackets. Again, a joke that everyone understood except for you two, so that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
That's fine. It's a really popular show, so that's whatever. That's on you guys. I have a question, which is, did Terry amputates Jeevan's toes? And there was a part of me initially where I was like, did she do that to force him to stay?
I was just about to make that joke.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. I don't think so, but it's possible.
I am pretty sure that it was from like I want to say it's like lower shin down, because he got really tore up like on his arm, and then his shin was like wide open to the bone. So I'm assuming at that point that it was massively infected, and that's why she had to cut it off.
Right.
Yeah, it was unclear what parts of him were damaged and to what extent. I initially thought she chopped the whole foot off, but then it seemed like she chopped like half of his foot off, and like, you know, like the heel was left.
Yeah, that was my understanding. It was like a stump.
Which seems like a messy amputation, right? Just like there's no like joint there. You're just like sawing through the foot.
Gnarly. Well, I mean, if it's just a nub, then like you could kind of cut everything before the joint, I guess.
Is this a call your mom and ask situation?
And well, she's on a
Mom.
She's not a doctor, so I don't know. I mean, she's a chemist. I'm not sure.
When in your experience amputating limbs,
yeah, I'll ask her at lunch today. See what she comes back with.
Yeah.
No,
she knew about like spraying blood on the wall or whatever that question was.
That's forensic chemistry. That's anyway. It's different. It's different than amputation, though. The different things. One of them is like
watch her actually know. Watch her know, and you have to eat these words.
I bet she will. She's more of a smartass than I am, so I guarantee she'll have a reply. But yeah, so the setup here is that Jeevan's stuck in this hospital, and like we said in the summary, all these women, they've got some kind of like synchronized birth situation. and I'm fairly sure, I say fairly sure, I'm 70% sure that Emily St. John Mandel is in this episode, by the way. I think at like... I think at 33 minutes-ish, she's holding one of the babies. I'm pretty sure that's Emily St. John Mandel. I couldn't find any information to verify that, but it would make sense that she had a little cameo. Short hair, kind of pale.
Yeah, I'm looking at her right now.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that was her.
You would have had us absolutely losing it if you're like, yeah, she had a cameo. She was the one who was like fully naked giving birth.
Yeah, that would have been a decision. Let me tell you. Now, a detail we learn about Terry that I think is fucking genius is that the only reason that she survived and is like still able to do this stuff is because she was running a Ponzi scheme at work and got fired. And so she was like one of the only doctors that wasn't out and about when the plague happened. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that then, I mean, again, there's a lot that happens and also nothing happens in this episode. So these women, they all have their babies over like a 4-day period. It's incredibly stressful to just exist in and watch. But it's also like really joyous and like just it's one of these like episodes of TV that like it's so stressful to experience, but it's so worth it because it's so hopeful in what it imagines for like what people can be. There's a moment like early on where Jeevan just needs a hug. And he's like he just needs a hug. There's no angle to it. He just needs a hug. And then we get Jeevan delivers a baby, which is wild. And yeah, it's just a very stressful 7 minutes of TV.
Well,
and then
back up slightly because you're talking about how how joyous and everything it all was, and pretty early on when he's able to get in a wheelchair and he hasn't learned to walk yet, or he hasn't got the fake foot or whatever it is, but he's like looking outside the doors and the doors are all locked and he's like, oh, I'm still trapped here. And then the woman he's talking to unchains the doors and lets him go. And at that point he's out, he's on his own, he's released. And that also was like a moment of, joy is not the right word, but it was a kind of an uplifting moment of, we need you, but if you want to go, then you can go, and you're gonna die in the snow, but you can go.
Right. Yeah, he's not a prisoner. Which, again, like, it's such an interesting choice. And then, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he stays because, like, this woman who's also pregnant stumbles toward him and, like, he helps her inside, right? Like, I can't tell if that's sort of what prompts him to stay, or if he stays because he earnestly wants to, or if at that point it doesn't really matter and it's all the same to him, sort of thing.
Yeah. In my mind, it was like seeing her kind of pass out was like, oh, that will happen to me if I try to be out here in the snow. Let's get her inside. That was kind of how I took it.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, okay, I could see that. But yeah, you're right. And like he's there kind of voluntarily, sort of. But also he starts to enjoy it, it seems like, and like he likes being a nurse, or he likes taking care of people.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like oh, sorry, Mike.
The cat's like, let me out. After an hour of chilling. You know what? That's a vibe. I get it.
What the heck was I saying? Oh yeah. So yeah. When Terry, is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When she's talking about she was running a Ponzi scheme. She was whatever scamming people, and then that's how she survived. I feel like that made it crystal clear to me what this episode was doing, which is like, it's about, finding your purpose after the world has ended, kind of thing. And this episode does such a great show of such a great job of showing of rather like making you feel that idea via what you were saying, like the sequence where everyone's giving birth. It's like so like stressful and intense, and then afterwards so joyous and fulfilling, and just like it's just like the I don't know, like it's such like genuine like joyous feeling that you get from it, which is exactly what like Jeevan would be feeling, and like you feel that from watching him, and like and then yeah, obviously like he has that conversation with that lady where she's like, you can stop pretending to be a doctor, you're a healer, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a nice show.
Yeah, it's
a pleasant show.
This show just cares about like being kind and like making like a thing that is just full of joy, but it's like joy in the face of like the reality of the world, right? Like, one of the women still dies during childbirth, and which has one of the most wild plot points. I feel like I was so slow on the uptake with the fact that her friend was called David. I did not clock that until he showed up. Basically, my brain did not register that name is what the prophet had been going by at one point. I felt like the biggest idiot when that happened. I was like, oh, of course, like. But yeah, like she passes away during childbirth, and then her friend does turn up after she's had her kid and pass away, and it's Tyler. It's a young Tyler, ostensibly, again about a year. Ooh, I guess this would be just after the airport ish because it's about a year in, and it's like one of those things of like I guess he did meet another adult, and he ends up obviously leaving without the kid. But yeah, I thought that was just like, that was such a like out of left field. I was not clocked in. I was not prepared for that to happen. Such an interesting, wild thing.
Yeah. So sorry, what was the relationship between? Who was it between the main pregnant lady we follow?
So
was David her friend or something?
The woman who passes away, who's waiting for her friend David.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She's the one that lets Jeevan out initially. And she's like, oh, like my friend David's coming. Like I just have to hold on till my friend David arrives. And she dies during childbirth, and that's when Tyler turns up, who we know goes by David later in life as well. And it seems like they were friends or something.
Well, her name was Sarah. And the baby, assumedly, is the quote unquote little brother that is following the prophet around later, when Kirsten meets him, and when they're out on the pier, David's the prophet says, "I used to have a family. I had a wife. Her name was Sarah, and she died." So what was the relationship? Because Tyler was like 8.
I think that's just pure fiction, like. Because you get, well, I mean, it depends how you want to read it, I suppose. It's left ambiguous, but my assumption is it's just one of the many fictions that he wears at various times. That is a really good pickup, though, Darth. I'm impressed you remembered that. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, my assumption was that, yeah, they're friends, or they're from the same community, or she's part of his emerging cult or something. But,
Wait, wasn't the name he gave Rose?
Oh, could be. That also sounds familiar.
Because that's how they figure how he's lying, is a Rose by any other name.
Well done, Pat. Yeah, I think that's right.
I firmly had Sarah in my head, but
Sarah's the name of the conductor.
Yeah,
right?
There's already a character named Sarah, so...
Yeah, the composer. That you might just be getting your wires crossed, yeah.
Maybe.
But I just think
really.
I found Emily. Look. Wait, where is she? She's right there.
There you go. That's Emily St. John Mandel. Good job, Pat.
The thought that I'm trying to wrap my brain around now is what Tyler was trying to say or trying to portray by I used to be married and I used to have a wife and she died. Like, if that's not just a fiction that made him feel better when he was like a kid or something, then it could have been intentionally like a manipulation to get Kirsten to trust him or something like that. You know, there's all kinds of different ways to read it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it is that, because we get this a little bit through Gil as well when he's explaining what happened at Pinktree, which is like, part of this guy's maneuver is he presents himself as like someone who is like, who has suffered a great loss because it makes him relatable to pre-pandemic people. That's like and like, I think I think we're supposed to read the prophet in those moments as manipulating the fact that these people have also lost something. You know what I mean? Like, he's sort of exploiting that fact, and perhaps in exploiting it, hoping to reveal it's like that it's a weakness that they empathize with this. Because he wants to, you know, his claim is that he wants to destroy what was before. So in presenting these various depictions of damage, he's sort of trying, and how easily it lets him manipulate these people. I think he's trying to demonstrate, like, look, having these vulnerabilities and these memories makes you, you know, susceptible to being, you know, lied to and cheated on, sort of thing. That's my reading anyway.
Did you have anything else on that, Pat? Because I wanted to go back to something else.
No, go for it.
One of you a second ago mentioned how it was, you know, dumb luck or whatever that had allowed Terry to survive because she wasn't at the hospital, and it hit me just how many people survive. Like, it's a recurring theme of the people who survive and it just being dumb luck. You know, with the people at the Sevierville airport that could have been diverted anywhere else. Maybe if they weren't diverted at all, they could have all died, you know. Anyway, there's a lot of different characters that I think have that kind of luck factor, which is so realistic to how that would play out in real life. Is the only way that you're avoiding a disaster is the luck of not being in the path of the disaster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of entropy, right? Like, and I think that's why I think like the next episode is such a compelling, and like there's this element of luck, and then at other times it's like someone has to like leverage their entire being to make something happen, to save somebody. Like, it's like you either get lucky and you live, or someone has to use all of their energy to help you survive, like, and to make that happen. I think it's just like a really fitting understanding of like how these things would actually go down. Yeah,
especially looking at Jeevan. You know, if he hadn't gone on stage to try to help with the heart attack, if he hadn't tried to help Kirsten, if he hadn't tried to help Kirsten again, if he hadn't tried to take her away from her empty house, if he hadn't done all of these different points of luck, then he would have never been in the spot to survive with Frank, you know?
Well, that's what all the best stories have, is like this, you know, a potion of fate and human decision and consequence, you know, mixed in where the proportions of each ingredient are unclear. Like, I feel like there's are always the I don't know, that those kind of stories give you the feeling that this show gives you of like, oh my god, like, you know, providence. And speaking of like Jeevan, you know, the King Lear play at the beginning when he notices the heart attack, like, you know, it's interesting, like it kind of seems like he's fated to become a healer. He notices the heart attack before anyone else does. He has the instinct of a healer, right? Yeah, it's like that kind of stuff. It's like, oh my god, like he he was always destined to arrive at this place and at this time, kind of thing, and realize his true potential. But also, as you say, like, it's random, it's entropy, like it's a good mix of both.
It was so hard not to bring that up. Like, I was doing my best not to spoil the fact that I know that Jeevan becomes a doctor, because you guys were like, why is he the only one that noticed? Like, you guys were so keyed into it, and I was like, don't say anything. Don't keep your face neutral.
Well, I think the really cool thing about that is I don't really know if it's supposed to be that he has like a, magical doctor powers. It was just that he saw someone needed help and he went to help them. And that was his whole, like, that ended up being his whole doctor thing, is he didn't know the doctor stuff. He was just there to help people. And that's how he started in, at that play.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting adaptational choice in that in the book, he's studying to be a paramedic when the world ends, and that's why he's able to identify the heart attack and he rushes up on stage. And I think it's interesting to make it ambiguous, like to not give us that detail, and to let it be up to the reader to figure out. I think is like just like a really I think a productive adaptational choice, because it does make you go like, is he just suited to this? Like, he spent his entire life figuring out what he wants to do, and the answer was actually like heal other people. I think it's a lot more poetic in the show, even if it makes more literal sense in the book. And there's no hospital full of pregnant women in the book, so different.
Oh,
yeah, it's a complete addition. Which is, God, that's got to be a wild day when you pitch that in the writer's room, hey? Oh, boy, brother. There's some other, like, little cool little, like, bits of entropy, or, like, as you say, Pat, like, things that feel, like, kind of faded. Jeevan's, like, big snow jacket is the same jacket that he wore during the play, so it has Dr. 11 on it, and then he becomes a doctor. I love little moments like that where it's like, and these two episodes are about closing the circle, right? And a moment like that, I just feel like it resonated so strongly, especially in that moment where he's preparing to say goodbye, and like, yes, Rose does die, which is a tragedy, but this episode is like so unabashedly like hopeful and joyous, and I think it's the right time in storytelling where it delights in being able to tell a story that ends happily. And even if it doesn't end, the story keeps going, but I don't know. I just love the resolution of this, which is like, no one is like begging Jeevan to stay, and no one is like telling him, oh, you have to go. There's such a level, like there's such an acceptance of every character has for each other in their circumstance, that just tends away from melodrama and just ends up being so unusual. I'm still not really quite sure how to process an episode like this. It's really unique.
It's probably worth noting that with the way that they handled Rose was very ambiguous, like off in the distance. Like when she dies, you don't really get hit by it because you didn't know her. They didn't involve her as much as some of the other women there, right? So you're able to finish the episode feeling like it's uplifting, and you're not feeling the loss of this woman, because they had her be in the background enough that it wasn't that that big of a blow, and you're able to focus on the baby that lived. Harry Potter. I'm sorry.
God damn it. I heard you say it, and my brain went, oh. Like, the neuron fired, and I was like, keep that to yourself. That's not funny. That'd also be an extremely funny gag of just, like, saying Harry Potter at the end of sentences where there's no gag. I feel like that would be very good.
That's a Rick and Morty joke.
That is a Rick and Morty joke. But yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's just like a balancing act, It manages to nail balancing these tones really well, and then you get the the moment of complete release when Frank goes back to the cabin and Kirsten has not Frank. Jeevan goes back to the cabin and Kirsten has left Frank's compass behind. You know? And that's how he knows that she's gone. And it just, like, this complete collapse of feeling of Jeevan, and he's, like, seeing these flashes of Kirsten walking toward the spaceman, and then we get the montage of Jeevan and Kirsten hugging, and, like, I was just gone. Like, at that point, I'm just, like, it, like, peeled me up the floor. Like, I was just, the tears were going. Because it's such a raw moment of, like, it's all of these feelings swirling and collapsing onto Jeevan. It's, like, loss and grief, and then also, like, relief and guilt and joy, and just, like, all of these things just completely overwhelming him. As, he has to let Frank go, and he has to let Kirsten go. And, yeah, I mean, just... And again, still somehow this episode is so joyful. Like, I mean, capable of writing stuff like this. It's so openly uncynical in its depiction of grief and loss.
Like, to what you were saying before about how the feelings it makes, like, this show as a whole is, like, these inexplicable, like, real life feelings of understanding that, like, everything is, unstructured and, entropic, and, people just, they intersect at a certain time and place, and, they're compassionate toward each other, but, they're all on their, like, individual journeys, and the memories that Jeevan has, like, in that sequence of, the times with Kirsten and with Frank, and how, like, for me, like, it kind of, the feelings that it evokes are, like, how no one wanted to be there, no one wanted to be in the situation, but you still make the best out of these situations, and you have these memories of warmth and companionship and love, that at the end of this fraught and difficult road of, things that you have to, like, keep you warm, and to, like, keep you compassionate and, fulfill you and stuff like that. Like, and yeah, that's the feeling I get. Like, Jeevan is, like, he's devastated, obviously, but, he's, like, he's content sort of in the fact and the memory that, he did love Kirsten, he protected her, he wanted to do, he tried to do everything right by her, like, and that obviously that shows at the end of next episode that, like, they never lost the love for each other, kind of thing, and, like, they did everything right as human beings, kind of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's none of that, like, melodrama of, like, yeah, like, there's no resentment. It's just, like, a radical acceptance of, like, this is just what it means to live with other people, and to be a person.
Yeah. I agree. I was sick, so I wasn't tearing up, but I was choking up.
It's I definitely feel like this episode to me is, like, the emotional climax of the story, and then the next episode is kind of the denouement, in a lot of ways, right? Like, the realization that Kirsten is gone is, to me, like, the emotional peak of the show, and then the rest of it is kind of just then dealing with that, the aftermath of that in some ways. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just, the shot of her walking toward the spaceman in the snow, and I was like, ugh, like, whoever the person is, and I bet it's a combination of, like, the director and the writers and stuff. Whoever was like, yeah, we gotta put the snowman in this shot, I just think it's fucking genius. It's so clever. And it communicates such the weight of the way that this like comic book has infused and warped reality for Kirsten, and also has become like a mechanism she uses to like deal with the end of the world. And the way that like art has this place in our lives where we can use it to sustain ourselves and carry us through some of the hardest things that, you know, and the most difficult things that we go through. I just thought that was like such a small decision that really resonated for me quite strongly. And I was like, that is a choice that I think other directors or other writers or whoever is, you know, making those decisions, whoever's, you know, ostensibly at the end of the day, Patrick Somerville, I think that's the kind of thing that a lot of other shows would miss the trick on, is making sure to include that, to be like, yeah, it's really difficult, but this, you know, part of what sustains us is like art. And then of course in the present, it's like, or, you know, for Jeevan at least, it's forgiveness and it's love and it's like being able to move forward, you know, and hold your head high, knowing that you did your best. Yeah. Super small choice.
And that art in question that, you know, influences such strong feelings has to be sufficiently, you know, big and nuanced and bold. And as Jeevan says, it's so pretentious. But like I love that line because, like, you know, like it is like, you know, for a story to have that much of an impact, like it does have to, you know, swing for like outer space kind of thing. Like you just, yeah, you don't. It doesn't have that much of an impact unless it's the kind of work like Station 11, written by someone like Miranda, you know, who's like has you know, years of depth and human experience, lovingly and meticulously, you know, thought about and weaved into, you know, whatever piece of art it's making.
And like literally imbued with her life as well, right? Like you get like some of Arthur's lines that she puts into the book, and you get some of Clark's, you know, turns of phrase and stuff like that. And, you know, her own, of course. Yeah. God, it's good stuff. Yeah, and I mean, and then we get our little tag at the end, which is in part to be like, Jeevan did kind of live happily ever after. And like, thank God, honestly, because I feel like this guy has spent his whole life waiting for his life to begin, and all it took was the end of the world, for him to figure it out, you know. And yeah,
and I love. This is my partner's credit. She said this, but Jeevan ends up being a cross between his sister and his brother, a doctor with a cane. So he's house MD essentially, but that's a fusion between his siblings. Yeah,
it's true. And obviously his pill addiction, another another parallel with House MD.
Yes, of course,
the classic.
When we first started, did I talk about how House was responsible for everyone learning to use canes wrong?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it in this show, but you and I have had this conversation at least 4 or 5 times. Because yeah, he uses it on the wrong side, and there's a plot point about.
Oh really?
Yeah, because Darth, you explain it, but basically, like he uses it. You're supposed to use it on the opposite side because it's for counterbalancing. You're supposed to use it when you're putting. Yeah, he walks with it on his right hand side, which is the side of his injury, and he presses it down, and it ends up fucking up his back. And there's a plot point later on where they make him use like a proper cane, and then he does it for like half an episode, and then gets annoyed and goes back to the old cane.
So I was laughing at the Darth, you explain it, and then you went straight on into explaining it.
Yeah, I was like, no, I've got this. Well, I assumed you'd do a better job than I would, and then I was like, no, like what am I doing? This is my show.
Yeah, you love House.
Yeah.
But no, it's I was having that thought like every time Frank was on screen, because I could not see. Yeah, whenever I heard that, you know, years ago, every time a character is on screen, I'm like, they're doing it wrong. and everyone, from like whatever article I read, like everyone learned it from House. Like that was the first popular show with someone walking with a cane that was doing it wrong, and like it was part of maybe it was part of like the character and all this, but like no one realized it. And it's fascinating that like people in real life, like I've got friends that walked with canes, and mom was walking with a cane for a while, and like I was always telling her like, you are not doing it right, and she would never believe me. She was like, this is how people do it. I'm like, no. Don't believe the TV.
Don't believe it's made up, okay? TV fiction. What's interesting is in the pilot he does use it correctly, so I don't know what that to do with that. I don't know what to do with that.
Some corporate exec got involved, and they were like, nope, no, we gotta change that.
We gotta change that shit. I mean, it's an iconic look, like the way that Hugh Laurie kind of limps about, so kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say this screen test didn't pass, obviously, so
yeah,
like switch it up.
That pilot, directed by famous sex pest Bryan Singer. Just a fun bit of trivia. Sorry, alleged sex pest.
The X-Men director.
Yeah. Fun to think about. Anyway, the flash forward that we get is 20 years later, and Jeevan is living his life with his kids and his wife, and he's in this like sort of little idyllic lakeside town, and he's sent off on a house call. And then we get another Tribe Called Quest joint where we get can we kick it? And I was like, I was cheesing the TV guy. I was grinning at the end of this episode. I thought this was such an uplifting way to end an episode of TV. They're like, yeah, he just lived happy. And guys, I felt so stupid in the next episode when we figure out where he's going, because I didn't put it together. Like it wasn't until he showed up at the airport that I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the last episode of this show.
I know.
I was like, okay, yeah.
I think I was just brain off, just like having a good time. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, that's fair, because I wrote like almost no notes for the next episode. I was just like in the fields, like
yeah. I've got a lot of like 4 or 5 word dot points, but that's about it. Like it's a lot of just like, oh my god, my feelings. Oh my god, this thing. Oh my god, that thing. Like it's not. Yeah, it was a big episode. But yeah, happy all's well that ends well for Jeevan, it seems like. So
I had an interesting thought to wrap up this episode. When they're in the cabin together, and he is constantly, or at least like verbally, he's saying, I'd never do anything for myself, and he's like resenting her, but he is still doing everything for her. And I'm thinking of the projector that he gets, and he gets like a power source and all this stuff so that he could play movies. And it's like not for him. He's like, what do you want? I'm going to get this for you. Like and then he gets the power source, and he's like, you could charge your phone now. And I'm also kind of wondering if like he's supposed to be depicting someone who is accepting the responsibility of the parent, where they lose sight of themselves, because there are people who just utterly don't know how to take care of themselves when there is someone else that they have to take care of. And it seems like that's what they have been portraying here, like that like the blunt that he smokes in that house. Like, is that the only thing he does for himself at all? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not grooming himself. It's
interesting. I mean, I think it's also like he's doing a lot of stuff to try and make Kirsten like him, because he knows that she doesn't, or he feels like she doesn't. There's something about Jeevan that up until the hospital, up until the department store, where he sort of learns to be healer, there's a lot about him which is just like he's just a guy who really wants to be liked, because he senses that everyone around him knows he's kind of useless, and he's kind of like a loser a little bit. And so I also wonder like how much of that is just him desperately trying to like win her affection in some way, It's like having a kid and like your kid doesn't like you. Like that's kind of the situation he finds himself in. And so like, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's like he's so outwardly focused, and he hasn't addressed whatever is like fundamentally the need he has that's unmet. And that is addressed by like him learning like what he's supposed to do with his life, right? And I think the irony is that, is what good stories do. The irony is that if he knew that and he figured out how to be a healer, I'm quite sure that young Kirsten would have liked him. I mean, like, yo, like this guy's got a, you know, he's at peace with himself and like he's healthy and balanced. And instead, like he's sort of perpetually on tilt, and he's always doing stuff for her and not really, yeah, able to figure out what he needs to do for himself. So yeah, I think I agree with that.
I feel like another element is that like something that you can't underestimate is how traumatized he is by Frank's death. And you know, he keeps talking to Frank throughout the episode, and it's always about Kirsten, isn't it? Like, and because you know Frank and Kirsten like had a special relationship, and you know Frank, you know, it wasn't like explicitly his last wish or anything like that, but it is, you know, there is like the implication, and Jeevan certainly seems to think so as well, that like Frank tasks Jeevan with looking after Kirsten at no matter the cost kind of thing. And yeah, just like there's like a swell of like, you know, guilt and feeling, and I think that's all on Jeevan's mind. And you know, obviously that's at odds with Jeevan's other want of finding other people and, you know, having a change of like scene and setting and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think he's preoccupied and disheveled for that reason also.
Well, and he blames Kirsten, right, for Frank's death. It's like, well, if we had,
that was sad.
Yeah, we hadn't stayed an extra day for fucking play.
Yeah, and then oh man, that broke my heart. It's like, don't fucking say that to her, bro. Come on, man.
Come on, dude. Have some self-control.
Yeah.
And she broke immediately too, which was fascinating, because you know this is the young, untested version of her character. Like older Kirsten wouldn't have broken that fast, but as soon as he said that, she's instantly like bawling.
Yeah. Right. Well, and it's clear that she hasn't really come to terms with this yet, because when he's like, you know, I was just supposed to walk you home, she says, like, you made us leave, Franks. And he immediately goes, yeah, but we waited too long. We stayed for your fucking play. And it's like the first time it seems like she's maybe thought about that fact. And he just completely, you know.
Well, you know what that might have been? Is that may have been the first confirmation she got that Frank died because of the guy.
Oh.
Well, yeah, and I think you're probably right in saying that it's the first time she's thought about it, because why? Like, she takes the knife. Like, if she had thought about anything, you know, about that scenario, her thoughts would maybe turn to the knife and be like, what happened? Where did I get this knife from? Yeah,
right. That actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. It's a pretty devastating argument in hindsight.
Yeah, right. Fucking hell. How to traumatize a kid 101.
Yeah.
There's a scene of her at the door and she's telling Frank goodbye. So you would assume that that Jeevan had said, "Oh, he's just sleeping it off. You know, he just got punched and he's asleep." And he would, I'm sure, never tell her the truth until theoretically that moment. Which it would have been lovely if they had clarified the trauma for us to know if this was it or not. But
right. Well, I mean, it kind of is. Like, you know, one of the biggest things that we get from Sarah is that, like, Kirsten never learned to say goodbye, and all of that starts here with Frank, where they leave Frank's apartment and she doesn't get to say goodbye. And that sort of begins this problem she has of letting go, and being able to say goodbye. And obviously the next episode is the resolution to that, in a lot of ways. So I think that even though it's not logistically clear, I think it's thematically quite clear, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And to effectively ruin our somber tone, Jeevan got out really well. He got away from her before the terrible teenage years because he was already not liking her, not able to cope with her, and she wasn't even a teenager yet. So he definitely would not have survived that.
Yeah.
You just know that she would have just been like, not super disrespectful, but she would have just been a edgy, rebellious teenager that like didn't listen or respect Jeevan. That's the kind of feeling I gotten.
But I feel like she would have been like the annoying type of teenager where she would have also been correct all the time, which would have made it even worse. You know, you know what I mean? You'd be like, well, she is right. Yeah, miserable. I feel like that would be pretty interesting, and I'm sure someone's like written this or like thought about this before, but I think it's probably an interesting essay to be had in the way that this show imagines childhood as opposed to like, I don't know, something like The Last of Us or other shows where they're writing children character like this. I think the writing of Kirsten as a kid is like particularly unique in a way that I don't know, we talked about it before, but like you just don't see a lot of this type of character written that's at this age. I'd be interested in someone doing some comparison work.
It was the same thing with young Tyler that we had kind of mentioned, is that he comes across as really odd, and we're not supposed to, or maybe we don't know if he's like really, really smart, and that's why he's so quiet, or what, but he's kind of like emotionally detached in a very similar way to young Kirsten. Mm-hmm. And I mean, those are probably just supposed to be, intentionally similar, but it also is like, it makes sense for him, with his parents being who they are, but I don't know for Kirsten's life, does it make sense for her or not, being in being an actor and being around those people all the time, but also having so bad of a home life that you think of Arthur way more than your own, parents.
Yeah, and like we also know that Tyler's had a pretty fucked up childhood as well, with the way that Elizabeth sort of treated him and manipulated him and stuff like that. So like they are both children sort of forged through pretty traumatic childhoods. So yeah, you're not wrong. But like I think
he had his own nanny. I mean, how bad off was he? I'm just saying.
That's true. Even rich people don't do trauma the way that the rest of us do.
I mean, that his coping is disassociation into his little Atari Lynx.
His little Lynx,
yeah. Yeah, I feel it.
I get it. Yeah.
I relate.
I too.
Yeah.
I too dissociate into video games. I understand.
Yeah, right.
We don't know what he's playing, do we? Because I am really curious. Like, does he have Zelda on there? Is he doing Pokemon? Like, what's little Tyler doing?
It's Atari, so like it can't be anything good. Like
Sonic? What else? Atari.
Sonic's
Who knows?
Sega,
Bro?
right?
Atari?
I don't know, Pat. What's an Atari game cartridge?
I don't know. I think that, yeah, it's weird. Atari, like, they had that period where they released like the Atari Jaguar and then the Atari Lynx, and were like consoles with nothing on them.
I feel like the original Donkey Kong might have been an Atari game. Maybe.
We had the original one, and it was just Pong and tanks and old school, just like two little lines on a screen kind of games.
Yeah, Space Invaders and Breakout and shit. Yeah. This is old school. Yeah. Well, it must have been exciting because he was really enwrapped. Either it was really exciting or he was really traumatized. One of the two. Or maybe both. I don't know. I don't know this kid. I think that's all I've got on this episode if we're ready for a break.
I just want to say I commend this show for just straight up showing a birth. That was a bold decision.
It was a bold decision.
Yeah.
That got me.
Yeah. Yep.
Jump scared Darth.
Jump scared Darth.
I think I may have literally shouted at the TV, I did not want to see that.
Yeah, you can tell that this episode was written by a woman. I was like, yep, that makes sense. And also, like, just a real focus on, just on, like, TV shows and, like, stories in general, typically written, you know, for the most part in Hollywood by men, don't focus on pregnant people and pregnancy. And, like, again, just, like, a commendable choice to be like, yeah, that's just what the episode's about. And you're just there the whole time. And I love that the other thing that I thought was really unique was that, like, being pregnant isn't described by the women as like a burden or like something that like impedes them. Like, they're all just happy to be pregnant. And I thought that was like such a nice decision. I'm thinking in particular in contrast to like other sort of prestige style TV shows where it's always presented as like a problem, where it's like, oh, like you're pregnant, it's like an issue to be solved. Like, when in Mad Men, when they have their third kid, it's like a really deeply freighted thing because of the situation of like their relationship, or the way that like the first season of The Last of Us like portrays, Ellie's mother and her pregnancy. Like, it's never a good thing to be pregnant in stories. And here it's just like unabashedly like a good thing, you know?
I like how it's also like it's important, but it's not the biggest deal in the world to say like, does she have a name, the main pregnant woman in this episode?
Yeah, she does, but I didn't write it down, so.
Okay. But like, she's, Jeevan asks her, what's it like to be pregnant? And then she's like, oh, it's not bad. Like, it's like, I don't know, she just gives a really nonchalant answer as if like, it's as if it's like not constantly on her mind, which it wouldn't be. Like, it's just like, and then she gives birth relatively, like, I know this is not how it always goes, but she gives birth relatively easily, and then she just has a baby now, and she's like, okay. And then it's kind of just like, yeah, it's a matter of course, fact of life kind of thing. Like,
I think one thing that it might be portraying is that all of those women just live through the literal like end of the world, and so it's not that they're happy to be pregnant, it's that they have a firsthand view that they're happy to be alive because everyone else they know isn't anymore. And so they have a different level of joy at, around life itself, versus those other examples that David was bringing up.
I think it's probably a yes, both thing, where I think that's also true. Yeah. I don't know, it's just like really unique episode of TV. I think this is the kind of thing that like you could almost, I don't think a lot of the emotional beats would land in the same way, but you could almost recommend this to someone as like, here's a standalone episode of a thing that's just like really unique and interesting. It has some of those qualities.
It really reminded me of the Last of Us episode, when it's just the guys and their relationship, and it's like a bottle episode, but it's their neighborhood, And at the time, I hated it. I was like, this is not connected to the main story whatsoever. But then it was a beautiful little, side story on its own, which was just like this, even though this was sort of connected, but I don't know. I don't know too many shows where they just have something so far out from the main plot. So that one, jumped into my head.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Atlanta kind of, which is like another Hero Mirai joint. There's a lot of that where it's like, I don't know, here's an episode about a different guy that you've never met before. And you sit there the whole time and you're like, where is this going? Yeah, I think similar. I mean, I'm sure that we will have some stuff to say about this. We're talking about The Last of Us Season 2 next, by the way, for the listener. So I'm sure we'll have some stuff to say about that. And I'm hoping to recruit Danielle and Sam because they're sort of my go-to Last of Us people. I think that long-time followers of mine will have heard me and Danielle talk about The Last of Us for at least 20 hours, I think, at this point. But I think that Bill episode is really interesting by comparison, where what they sacrificed to make that episode happen in the original source material is totally worth it for what they can achieve for just an episode of TV, where it's like you can just feel Craig Mazin. He's in the lab. He has this idea for an episode, and he just like writes the living hell out of that episode. Like he's in there doing it. And I think that this episode feels similar in that you can feel Somerville doing the plot construction at the beginning, and then he just hands off, and he's like, all right, like this is just do what you're going to do. And it really feels like he just gives it to McCarran, and she just runs with it, and writes this like really nice standalone. But I think while I love that Bill episode, I think that this does a much better job of advancing a lot of the ideas the show has. And then also, of course, with the ending, tying it together and like bringing it into this cathartic moment and resolving this outstanding like emotional question we've had the whole time around like Kirsten and Jeevan. Like I think it's both a better standalone and a better part of a series than while that Bill episode is brilliant. I think I prefer what this is able to achieve and what this does achieve within the context of like the show.
What this episode doesn't have though is a hit song which you can attach the emotion of the episode to.
It's actually a really good point, Pat. That's a really good point. Yeah,
because when I've that song, I forget what it's called. Long time or something. That will forever be intertwined with that episode in my mind now.
Yeah, it's a bit like what's the song at the end of Guardians 2 that plays, and it's just like every time I hear that song I'm just like immediately transported back to that moment of like emotion. Yeah, this I feel like that's just something that like the audiovisual medium can achieve that books never can, which is like the ability to tie a song to an image and it just resonates and like sticks with you forever,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What?
Sorry. You're like, I think that's just something that books are not able to do, have pictures and sound.
Yeah, that's what I just like. It's literally an artifact of the medium. And I feel
know.
like
it was just like so obvious that I was just, I don't.
sometimes in media criticism, you just have to say the thing out loud, no matter how dumb it seems. Okay. But I've been thinking about this specifically because I've been playing a lot of Death Stranding too, and that game does a lot of like needle drop moments where it's like you'll just learn something profound or like done something profound, and then it'll be like, and here's a song, and then you listen to the song and you're just walking and thinking and listening, and it's like it just it leaves you with your space with the thing to be like, yeah, like think about this, and I am thinking about that,
And I love how they always cue the songs for moments where it's like relatively like flat environments and stuff, and where there's not much like there's like interesting visual like background and stuff, but there's not anything going on in your immediate vicinity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it gives you like real meditative moments.
There's some great stuff toward the end of the game where like you don't have any vehicles and you just walk in and it'd be like, and here's another song, and I'm like, oh man, there is another song. Now I'm feeling stuff. I'm still not sure that that's a good game, but it's an interesting one.
Have you already finished it?
Not yet. I'm like getting close.
Fucking hell, bro. I think you're probably past me.
Probably.
I started like weeks before you.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. Some of us just have them gamer skills, dude. I don't struggle the way that you do, For me, easy game.
Truly.
For me, easy. For you, hard.
You just...
For me,
POV
impossible.
of David's Death Stranding. Just take off the backpack and just like chuck it to the next location.
Yeah. That's the difference between you and me, Patrick.
Modding the fuck out of your game.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. I don't struggle with game because I'm good at it. So, how do I put all my packages on my back? Not a problem for me. I got it on lock. You know what I mean? I gotta load up this truck. Nah, dude, sorted. You know what I mean?
Just don't ask him how.
Don't ask me. The irony is that Pat's way better at video games than I am. I just have clearly more time on my hands at the moment. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the last episode of Station 11, episode 10, Unbroken Circle. I don't know how we did it, but we made it. Very exciting stuff. So we will be right back after these messages about products and or services. Probably products. We don't really have any services, so it's going to be products. And yeah, we'll be right back to talk about the final episode somehow. This post-apocalypse unit is sponsored by the Maynard Trigg series. You can find these books at undering.press. They are my science fantasy coming-of-age novels. If you like post-apocalypse fiction, I guarantee you'll like these novels. They take place in a dying world far above the earth in the skies. They are fantasy novels. They are mystery novels. They are coming-of-age. If you enjoy the things we talk about and the way we talk about them, I guarantee you'll like these novels. Use code REVIEW10 at checkout. That's REVIEW10 at checkout for 10% off the original hardback of the first novel. That's this one right here. Once again, REVIEW10 at undering.press to grab your copy of the first Maynard Trigg book today. That's good stuff. All right, welcome back. We are talking about Station 11, Episode 10, Unbroken Circle, the final episode of Station 11, somehow. It feels like just yesterday we started this TV show, and somehow we're at the end. You know what I mean? It's blown past, and I think that where I land at this point is this is such a weird episode of TV in, like, the way that... Okay, so I've made this complaint before, which is Stephen Moffat's very last episode of Doctor Who, and yes, I'm talking about Stephen fucking William Moffat, okay? Give me a break. I'm obsessed with the man, all right? His last episode of Doctor Who, he has the Doctor out loud at the end of the episode say, oh, there is no evil plan. There's nothing to fight. Because he realizes that the problem they're facing is, like, not a problem at all, and it's, like, actually, like, a good thing. And he's just misinterpreted. And what I think is really interesting about this episode is it does a similar maneuver where things just resolve themselves by everyone being reasonable, and, like, owning up to their emotional baggage and, like, addressing it. I think it really works here. I don't know, I guess I'm curious at, like, a high level, if you guys feel the same way about this one, because it does sort of go... Like, the conflict just kind of resolves itself to an extent, but, you know, it's through some hard work by Kirsten, and you know, empathy and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess I'm curious before we get into the summary and, like, get into the weeds, like, how does this work for you guys as, like, a finale in general?
That's a good point. Didn't really think about that. Because yeah, I feel like another story would feel the need to create some explosive conclusion based on the drama that's been set up. Whereas, yeah, like, everyone has, like, a moment of, like, reflection and introspection and emotional maturity, and they, like, they make the decision to, like, you know, not be violent or suspicious or destructive in any way. Yeah, I don't know. But you know, that's what this show has been. That's what the show has been about, like, healing through art almost. You know, and despite Clark saying, you know, this isn't art therapy, it's fucking civilization. It actually is art therapy.
Yeah, it turns out it actually is.
And,
Fuck, come on.
Yeah.
Keep up.
But yeah, no, I don't know. There's a beautiful ending. I thought everything worked so well. Like, you know, things were still entropic, but also serendipitous, and all the emotions were just right and as potent as you'd want them to be, and yeah, I don't know, I loved it. I thought this was a beautiful.
Agree. Darth, vibe.
It was everything it needed to be and nothing I wanted.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. I mean, you've kind of convinced yourself into a corner with this show, to be fair. Where you keep trying to convince yourself that there's something else happening that isn't what's happening. With like the genre, I feel.
Ish. I mean, for me, it just a whole lot of it was the way that the resolutions happened didn't quite hit for me. And so like by this point I was pretty sure that no, there was no like actual time travel or anything like that. I had given up on the idea of the Wolfman. I did not expect mutants at this point. There's a whole lot that I've let go of going into this episode. But like I love the idea that Kirsten giving up the knives and him saying, "Why are you helping me?" And she's like, "I tried killing you and that didn't work. I'm going to try loving you." And like that's what leads to the resolution for everything. But it was the way all the little different subplots kind of played out that didn't hit right for me. So it still was perfect in a way that makes me weepy, while not being what I would have expected, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can look at it and be like, this is objectively great, but it maybe just personal taste wise didn't quite hit what you would want, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Okay, well, let's get stuck in then. So, episode 10, Unbroken Circle, directed by Jeremy Podeswa and written by the man himself, Patrick Somerville. When you're ready, Pat, can we please hear the last summary for Station 11?
Before the end of the world, Clark calls Miranda. They commiserate their lives together. The traveling symphony are released from quarantine. Kirsten remains skeptical of Elizabeth as the symphony must wait a day for the doctor to arrive. Kirsten casts Elizabeth as Gertrude and the prophet as Hamlet. Before the end of the world, Miranda uses Jim's connections to convince the pilot of the doomed plane to seal the doors. She tries not to live the wrong life and then die. In the now, Jeevan arrives at the airport. He helps guide Sarah through her last moments before she passes. Meanwhile, Kirsten convinces Clark to let them stage the play her way by presenting her copy of Station 11. Clark claims the role of Claudius. The troupe stages the play as the undersea infiltrate the airport. Time collapses as the troupe grieves Sarah. Miranda dies and Tyler reconciles with Elizabeth. Meanwhile, Kirsten and Jeevan reunite. And so we say a number of goodbyes. Elizabeth, Tyler, and Alex leave with the undersea. The symphony comes to a fork in the road. The symphony heads left while Jeevan heads right, and so some small part of the damage is healed.
Yeah. And then the theme song plays. Yeah. So, there's a lot to get stuck into, but I guess we should start with Miranda because we go back to that very first meeting that we join her at with Arthur, where she's giving him the comic book. And again, this scene that we just keep revisiting. It's so important for this show. This moment where she reunites with him and she gives him the comic, and he asks her out. And we get that beautiful line once again where she's sort of parodying Leon, where she says, the path things take from A to B, it's always made sense to me. And then this is where I kind of go like, okay, maybe you guys were right, which is it seems like maybe Miranda didn't die at the end of her episode. and there's a bit of plot left for her to achieve, where she kind of sets about sort of working with Jim, who is obviously dying, like they're both dying. She is using his connections in the logistics software, whatever they have, to get the phone number of the pilot of the plane that's landed at Seven City Airport, because she's on the phone with Clark, and she suddenly starts to put it together that like she needs to do something to help him, but in particular Elizabeth and Tyler, and in some way honor Arthur's memory by helping them survive. Clark's like, you have to do something, someone has to help them, sort of thing. And yeah, it essentially, the reason they stay on the plane is because she calls this pilot and basically convinces him like there are people inside, and if you open the doors, like you're killing them. You have to keep people on board. And so we do kind of get a revisitation of, we don't quite get like the full bottle episode of like what happened on the plane, but we kind of learn like how it all came down in the end. And it was Miranda who sort of intervened, which I think is quite poignant, that with her last moments she helped save the airport, which is obviously so central for us in our story.
Yeah. I like how, I mean, we get this in parts, right, throughout the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like how there's a moment to consider the side of like the pilot as well. His life, and she's like, do you have a family? And he's like, yeah, they weren't answering, I left a message. And I just feel the show is the kind of show to give equal weight to every individual, like give them an interiority and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that was neat. Yeah. And I love her talk with Clark as well. And we in the last few episodes we've seen Clark in a pretty negative light, and then we see like the dimensions to him, where he calls up Miranda and says the things that he always has wanted to say since he saw her last, which was like, hey, like I'm sorry how things went. And I don't know, it's a very like heartwarming conversation between those two.
Yeah, well, because she basically says like, when you were with Arthur, those were like the happiest years of my life, which is like pretty interesting, because that's before like if you think about the timeline of things, he basically gets sober right after that, and completely changes his life right after that, that divorce, just like timeline wise, and becomes this like, the shadow of himself that we see, 20 years later, where he's like this corporate fucking shell of who he used to be, and he's spouting all these things that he doesn't really believe, and he just completely changes his life like after this this person leaves his life. It's almost like in some way like her leaving Arthur is also her leaving him in a lot of ways, because she says, I don't keep in touch. Yeah, it's like pretty devastating for him. It like completely changes his life. That this relationship that he has with her ends, which I think is like just a really human thing, where it's like, yeah, you don't realize that a relationship is important until it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Was it written down here? Jim reads the comic, which is extremely funny, and also he has my laptop. It's like he's using the same Lenovo that I have. Son of a bitch. That was funny. And then we've got obviously
one issue that I had with the plane thing is, at first I was like, I hate when stories do this, when they make like they have to make everything connected. Like the people in the plane had to decide to stay there to die because of Miranda. They couldn't just do it out of their own good noble will. But then I was like, well, that's what this entire show has been, is this interconnectedness of everything. So okay, I can let that go. but then it was the timeline that kept bugging me, because how long the plane had been sitting there and the pilot wasn't letting them out, and it had been there for a while, and he was just waiting for news from the tarmac or something. Like he was waiting for someone in charge to tell him that they could deplane. And I wish that the timeline had been different so that she gets a hold of him, like maybe before they even land, because it was almost like her call. He was already not letting them off the plane. So her call wasn't the reason he didn't let them off the plane, because he was already not doing that. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it like that's a thing that happens, right? If you land on a runway and you might wait like an hour or two before like you can hop off because airport administration is garbage and whatnot. So that's like nothing unusual, but at a certain point, when it gets to like you've been sitting there for 10 hours or something, at that point people on the plane as well as the pilot would go, all right, this something's wrong, no one's coming to get us, and we're gonna fling the door open, use the emergency slide or whatever. And I feel like that's what she's trying to prevent, is like, yeah, like no one's coming to get them, but she's like, you need to make sure that the people don't like want to evacuate their plane themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also had the same thought. I was like, that's not unusual, but
it was probably just with all of the like the time skips and stuff is what got me, because when I was watching, I was like, it's been like 2 days and they still haven't deplaned, so why does her phone call do anything? So
yeah, I mean, I think that like and I'm not saying this as a criticism or as a description. I think something that permeates all of Saint John Mandel's work is this like, not an issue of legibility, but legibility is a question throughout all of her work. A lot of her stories have this kind of clockwork nature to them, where they all sort of end up fitting together at a certain point, and you kind of have to go back and like re-put it all together to figure out how it fits. And I feel like this is one of those things, because the way that I kind of understand it is the plane arrives, Arthur has the conversation with the assistant, like the nanny, and then Miranda calls him, and they have their conversation, and then that same night, as he's getting drunk, she then calls the pilot. So my understanding was it's all sort of the same sort of 10 to 12 hours of time, rather than like the subsequent days or whatever. That's my understanding anyway. I could be wrong.
That sparked my memory. We had talked last episode about how it was just this pure luck that people were surviving, and if Clark had not gotten Miranda on the phone right when she was walking up the ramp to the boat, and she had not passed out and dropped the keys in the water, she would have been on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Like which doesn't mean that, and she might have like survived being on the boat. She still could have died. We don't know, but that was another. Like if when she fell down, even if she got the call, if she fell and the keys didn't go in the water, she still could have gotten on the boat. There are so many little, tiny happenstances that put people where they ended up.
Mm. Yeah, and it's that like all that happens, and her decision at the end is like she chooses to use the last of her strength to like do something for other people, right? Like it's just all these characters relentlessly choosing like to be kind and good to each other in the face of like this existential adversity. They just like they all try and do the right thing by each other. Yeah, but it is yeah, I would be interested in like sitting down and like I think it's like a bad exercise to do, but sitting down and actually figuring out like the timeline of this stuff I think would be curious, because I actually don't. My assumption that it's the same 10 to 12 hours, I have no evidence for. It's just the way that I read it.
Yeah, I think watching it over, watching it straight through especially would be massively helpful and give an entirely different read on so many things.
Yeah.
So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah. It's a really, really good show to rewatch.
One thing that I'm absolutely going to forget, so I'm just going to mention it now, is the super happy guy who keeps trying to recruit them and saying, you know, I want you to come and come to the museum and do your play for us.
Mhm.
And he was at the airport before, but then he left with Tyler's maid with the soccer team.
Yeah.
But then he comes back but had his memory lost, so he doesn't remember what happened.
I think that he's either lying or he's experienced some trauma so that he doesn't remember.
Yeah,
I was
there's
curious
something
if like the
fishy with that dude.
You what?
There's something fishy with that dude. He had an Italian accent. Like, what was that
Yeah,
about?
it
Like,
just makes no sense.
Yeah. I was curious if the book did anything different with him, because that was just such a, like, that might have been the most like sci-fi thing out of all of it, is a homeboy coming back, lost the accent, and doesn't have a memory anymore.
I don't even think he's in the book. I don't think he's. Yeah, I think he's an addition for the show. I'm fairly sure he's not a character in the book. So do with that what you will. Yeah, he's a weird guy, man. You know, he's up to something.
I like how we see the how the virus kills people essentially in the scene when they're in the hotel, because Jim, he just essentially goes to sleep, and you get a sense of like the time frame. Like, it seems like about a day, like when you catch it, and then it takes about like 24 hours, and the symptoms aren't like severe at all. Like, you cough every now and again, but like you sweat a little, but like that's it. And I don't know, I like how the show sort of like gave us some detail about exactly what the virus looks like, and it gives some believability as to how it spreads, and no one's in necessarily a panic about it. Like, makes it more believable, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and
recall back in. You want to finish?
No, you go.
In the first episode, when Jeevan and Kirsten come upon the vehicle and there's the man in it, and he is like coughing out a lung, and like seems like he is about to totally go. But then a lot of the people at the hospital with Sarah, whatever, the sister, a lot of the people around there, like some of them are coughing, but not all of them are coughing like the one dude is. And then, talking about Jim now, and I noticed the same thing, that it was a very mild death, if that makes sense. And I wonder if they were very like intentionally showing like different reactions that the different people are having to this virus.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's like any kind of virus, like it's gonna affect different people differently, right? Plus, like, I think that probably the weather and the climate makes a huge difference. Like, if it's snowing and cold, you're gonna have more respiratory issues than if you're somewhere that's warm and humid. So that kind of makes sense.
Well, initially, that was one of my complaints in that first episode, was that the dude in the car was hacking up a lung, and that was the first like evidence I think that we had seen of symptoms of the virus. And then the people in the hospital, especially the sister, like, were not coughing to that extent, and I'm like, they should have kept it consistent. But now with this extra scene, we're seeing that it is very inconsistent on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Also, having just had influenza while I was in Europe, let me tell you, where you are makes a huge difference with like how symptomatic you are. Like, when I was in Italy and it was like 35 degrees, I was just coughing up all kinds of shit and like was mostly fine. Like, and then back to the UK where it was a bit cooler, fucked. Like cold and dry is really, really bad for like influenza. So I honestly kind of also think it, as much as I don't care about this in stories, I think it also logically tracks the kind of difference in how the symptoms are presented. You know, I think that it makes sense to me. Plus, like, it's a mythical flu. They can kind of have it do whatever they want. Yeah.
And directly contrary to that, if they had researched this enough to actually have the environments affect the effect of the virus on the different people, like, I adore that. I love that so much. So it's just so funny that you're like, I don't care about it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I did the work for you. Like, it's all there. Yeah. Okay. The next thing I have is, I mean, I don't really have anything else on Miranda. I just think it's like, you know, it's a really fitting end for her, I think, to be able to make this sacrifice. And we get a little bit more about like her backstory as well. When she calls the pilot.
Yeah, that was tragic.
Yeah. And she's like, everyone I loved and who loved me died right in front of me. A live wire came through our flooded home. I should have died too, but I was coloring up on the countertop. So I survived. The people in the airport and then the passengers, like, they're all up on the countertop now. She's like, yeah. I was like, man.
And then there's some other like random bit of providence that like the pilot is named after the cyclone that killed her family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Crazy. I was like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
this show is relentless. And then we sort of get this crosscut.
Hold up. We need to finish on that because it didn't hit me at the time. When she tells the story that her whole family died like in front of her, that Station 11 and I Remember Damage is that. It's her remembering her childhood trauma of seeing her whole family die. Because
Station 11 gets flooded when the like station, like the thing breaks, and so like it's all there, I think. Yeah.
So she's like, she ends up being the undersea. That's the kid that is like separated, and oh, see, I didn't put all that together at the moment. I was just all like weepy and stuff.
Yeah, same. It's a little bit more coherent in the book, I think, because you get a little bit more of like the actual story of Station 11. But yeah, I think that's definitely what, like, she's working through her life basically, and this trauma through this comic book. Yeah. Which
is like the context of that in, like, if she had been able to communicate that with Arthur, because he thinks like, why do you're coloring this book, you're not paying attention to your husband, but she's literally working through childhood trauma and just doesn't tell him that. It would have solved so many of their communication issues, but maybe she didn't know. Maybe I don't know how, conscious it would have been for her that the book is working through that trauma.
Mm-hmm. Also, like, even were that the case, that doesn't necessarily, and I'm not trying to defend Arthur because I think he's like a complicated guy, but like someone working through various trauma or whatever the thing is that they're working through, that doesn't necessarily mean that they get like an automatic, like, go directly, go to start and collect $200. Like, they don't get like a free pass just because they're working through stuff. Like, you still have your own emotional needs, and you're still in a relationship, and I just think it's like it's a deeply freighted thing to try and grapple with. And I kind of like that we don't have an answer. The show doesn't have a value judgment of that. It just goes, here it is.
And to be clear, like, if anyone's in a situation similar, I said that in the context of he would be able to reach out and help her, not that he should leave her alone to work through it by herself. It's that if you don't know she is struggling with something, then you don't know that, oh, I need to be there to help her with the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
exactly.
I like how it's unclear whether it's because she hid that from him, didn't tell him, or if he just never asked her, like, because it could be both. Like, you could see that behavior from Arthur where he just like never asked her like about, like her family or something.
Well, you kind of get that through Tyler later on, where he says like, where he's giving that little he's talking to Kirsten, and he's like, yeah, like my dad used to like talk all kinds of shit about Miranda in front of her in Spanish, and then after they split up, she called him and they had this conversation in Spanish, and she told him that he'd never asked her a single thing about herself. So like, yeah, I think that's right. Arthur, come on, man.
I know. What is scumbag?
He's such a weirdly tragic figure. Yeah. You can really feel Somerville like empathizing or feeling for a guy like Arthur, who he just can't get his shit together. Like he just can never get his life to look and be right. There's always something in the way, or there's always something wrong. Super interesting. And like the one relationship he has that like probably could have worked out ends not because he does anything necessarily wrong, right? He doesn't actually cheat on her, but it's the fact of who he is, that it's so believable he would have an affair that he may as well have had one, and like, yeah, he's so tragic in that way. Yeah, I think he's a lot more central in the show, I think, than in the book, in a physical sense. One of the things that the show doesn't have is in the book, Arthur wrote a series of letters throughout his early acting career to a character back where he came from, like in Canada. So like in the book, he's from the same place that Emily St. John Mandel grew up. And he's writing these letters to this person, and you find out later on, and they're like really personal stuff about like he's writing about, his friends. So like Clark is in these letters, and like a bunch of other people are in these letters. And you find out later on that a lot of the letters are being written to Miranda, back when she lived there before they got together. And so one of the big tensions of the book is that this series of letters is going to be published by someone. And so Clark and Miranda are like really pissed off at Arthur for publishing these letters. And it's part of what draws them all back into contact. But it's curious that here, like, you just have Arthur as like that element of him taking advantage of being famous and like, basically publishing all this stuff about his friends and family isn't here. I think I think it complicates him a bit more. It makes him less of a complete scumbag. He's a bit more redeemable, I think, in the show.
Yeah. I kind of like, I don't know. I feel like there's a tiny bit of inconsistency with his character, I feel, in the show. Like, yeah, he's like, because he seems like the kind of person that, like, I don't know, would never like seriously like betray his friends or do something like that, but like every other character in the show seems to think of him that way. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but like it just, that description of the book makes a lot of sense for his character. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the way that people treat him in the show is that like there are all of these imagined injuries that he's performed that we just don't see. Like, I feel like he's not the type of guy that's going to do one big betrayal. It's like 1,000 cuts rather than one big blow type of thing, which is not normal for characters in shows like this. Normally it's like, you did this one massive thing that like really hurt my feelings. It's like, no, like for Arthur, it's just like 1,000 small things that add up over time. And that probably makes it even harder to be angry at him, because then you feel like you're like inventing stuff to be mad at. Because there's never one thing that's big enough, right? And that's kind of the argument that he and Clark get into, right? That it's like, yeah, it isn't, there's no one thing that he does wrong to all these people in his life. It's all these tiny things that add up. Which I think is where that sense of inconsistency comes from, because it feels inconsistent, because it kind of is. Like, it is asymmetrical. Their distaste of him and what we see of him, I think.
Yeah, and Clark has to like sort of express it in sort of like a poetic way, where he says, Miranda was drowning with with a rock attached to her, and you were worried about if she liked your movie.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of sums up the general feeling of those little things that happened in their relationship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's so incapable of seeing it, or he's like unwilling to see it, or something.
Mm.
And you kind of get the sense that like maybe with Elizabeth, it was probably pretty similar. But we don't really get a sense of what their relationship was like either, which is a really interesting decision,
I feel like this is this may be a reading too much into it kind of question, but there is a consistent theme with Miranda and water. She's up on the countertop with the flood, and then her family dies. There's that quote that you just said about her drowning with a rock tied around her, or an anchor tied around her, whatever. When she gets angry at Arthur and then goes out and she dips her toes in the pool when Clark is talking with her. The boat obviously was centered around water. There could be more. I guess the lake where Kirsten is, and then the river. Maybe water itself is like some big metaphor in here for something. The undersea, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's from the Virgin Islands, and they're like pretty small islands. Imagine she was always around water growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, logistics is like all about like shipping stuff on boats and things like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's like a direct allegory. Like, I don't think you can point to water and be like, this means that, but certainly that's ever present, I think. And I want you to hold on to that as an idea when we get to Glass Hotel in particular, because I think it's really interested in like what living on like an island means, and like what water does to you as you grow up, and like how that can shape you. Because yeah, I mean, I think it's this thing that like takes away her entire family, but then she ends up centering her entire life around it in some ways, right? The book is all about this flooded space station. She works in logistics, which is like moving stuff across water. It's like it permeates every part of her life. And she, yeah, I don't know. There's something there about like surrendering and we get in the previous couple episodes, it's pouring down with rain when the symphony is dealing with the fact that the prophet is like, put this death threat on them, and Kirsten goes off on her hunt type of thing. Yeah, it's definitely here. I think there would be a really interesting essay in comparing how this show uses water as a theme with Andor, because that show also puts Andor himself in a lot of associations with water. When he initially grows up, he, they live by that, before he's kidnapped, they live by that big lake. When he finds out the news about his mom, he's like standing by the ocean side. He gets pinched by the ocean side. He uses water to escape the prison. There's that shot of all the people swimming away. Like when he goes back when he goes back home, it's pouring down with rain again. Like it's all there. He dies by the beach at the end of Rogue One. I don't know. Like you could do that comparative reading and try and put those two texts in conversation with each other about like what they do with water. I think there's a free essay there for someone if they want it. Yeah. Not sure what to make of it, but it's all there. Next thing I've got then is, I guess, now that we've kind of, do you guys have anything else on Miranda? Or should we talk about the airport and the symphony?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, we have, the big setup here basically is Kirsten wants the symphony to leave, and she has this kind of little argument with Elizabeth that I actually really like, where she basically goes like, fuck you, you're not special, like, your son is back, and you're basically, like, do you know how rare that is for anyone to ever have anyone come back? It's ironic given Jeevan in a second. And she basically is like, you need to deal with this. Like, you have to talk to your son. And Elizabeth is kind of going like, I don't know who he is. Like, he's like a ghost. And Kirsten is like, okay, well, what we need to do is we should cast Elizabeth as Gertrude and then cast the prophet as Hamlet, so that they have to talk to each other. And Kirsten takes over as director as opposed to Elizabeth. And it's this really subtle moment of her effectively taking back the symphony to an extent from Alex. There's a sort of like there's a way that Alex has kind of come to own the symphony's emotional core, from when they like, it's almost like at Pingtree when she comes back, she kind of takes over as like the emotional core of the symphony, and this moment of Kirsten becoming the director is kind of taking that back. And this is all foregrounded by the undersea walking toward the airport, and they've got their landmines. They're obviously planning to do something, blow the freaking thing up. And yeah, the big thing here is that Alex initially wants to stay at the airport for a year, and then this is where we get the big conversation between them, where Kirsten gives up her knives, which, and yeah, I'm curious what you guys make of that. We've already touched on it, but yeah, she sort of she kind of finally agrees with Alex, and she's like, "You're right. Like, I don't need these." What do we make of her giving up her weapons, and this kind of her taking ownership of the symphony again?
Well, if you think about it, like a big thing that separates pre-pans from post-pans is that if you're a pre-pan, you go from a world of relative safety to danger, and you need to make that switch to be alert and be ready for violence at all times. Whereas if you're a post-pan, I feel like you're always been raised to think that you're always in danger, you always need to be on the lookout, and the thing you would want is the opposite, is safety and calm, and that's what the Museum of Civilization offers Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And and hence her desire to stay there. And I don't know, I think, I don't know, Kirsten's just like desperate to not have anything change, really. Like, she's just like trying to get Alex to change her mind about staying there, I think, is the primary motivation there.
Well, yeah, because she's never learned to say goodbye, right?
Yes, yeah.
Plus, I think there's this other element happening of there's something here about the ways that Tyler and Kirsten do violence is like in conversation with the way that Alex sees the world, because it's the book that ultimately helps Kirsten talk the children down and like basically like dissolve this plan that the prophet has, or that the prophet has enacted to destroy the airport. We don't know exactly what the plan is, but children with landmines is never going to end well. And it just seems like she kind of disarms all of this by making herself vulnerable, giving up these weapons, and just being like kind and empathetic. And that's sort of what the prophet needs as well. Like, he needs someone. No one's ever done that for him. He kind of grew up in this place where like Clark and Elizabeth were kind of lying and doing all these things to get ahead. And it's like, and that's to the line that Darth mentioned before. That's exactly what Kirsten says. Is she's like, well, I tried killing you and that didn't work. And so she tries like the opposite. And it feels like she's tried to kill the world. Such a stupid sentence. It feels like she tried to kill the world and it's failed. And so now she has to choose to like love instead, be kind instead.
And like, it seems like Alex has been sort of jumping around for role models. So like, originally it was probably and it's the way that kids and adolescent people do is they change that kind of stuff frequently. But yeah, like, supposedly it was she looks up to Kirsten, and then you know, she wants something more, something different, and the prophet appeals to that side of her. You know, something beyond her world. You know, something inexplicable. And then it becomes Elizabeth, who is, you know, like, who is wise and graceful and offers a safe environment, and then and then like Kirsten is like, you know, maybe he's clued into that and like tries to like be like, look, I'm more Elizabeth than the prophet, you know, I can give up my violence and, you know, provide you the same sort of like environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, I don't know, like, it's just like it's one of those things of like, I think that it makes so much emotional sense to me that when it happened, I was like, yeah, of course, like, of course she's like, I don't need these knives anymore. Because also this coincides with the moment where she becomes the director, and she's no longer the star of the show, right? There's something about her like giving over the spotlight, or like kind of stepping aside, or something. There's something else there as well about like the violence and her no longer being the star. I'm not sure what, but like there's something in that as well. Parallelism there, especially with Sarah passing on. Like, you know, she ostensibly becomes like the de facto leader of the symphony now, right?
Okay. So I have a big problem with the giving up of the knives thing because it doesn't fit within the context of everything else. The only way that it makes sense is if they are all planning to stay at the airport forever. In that context, it makes perfect sense that Kirsten is saying, yes, I don't need this anymore. I don't need to be violent I don't need to be violent here. In this space, I'm safe. In this space, it's a different world than I grew up in. But 2 days ago, she was literally almost killed. You have to have your knives. The world is violent. Alex trying to go out on her own and say the world is happy, the world is nice. Proof 2 days ago. No, it's not. So the giving up of the knives, that whole symbolism doesn't work because of that scene with the bandanas. Like, I think that scene should have been cut completely so that we don't see any violence. So that Kirsten is always thinking that there is violence, that she's always scared and she's always prepared, but it never happens. And so then when this scene happens and she gives up the knives, we're finally seeing she's letting go of that anger and fear that is left over from the one guy who attacked Frank 20 years ago. Right? Then all of this would be perfect. But because the bandanas exist, because the threat is real, the whole thing doesn't jive.
Yeah, but I feel like that's exactly what makes it potent, is that there is still danger and violence out in the world, and so therefore giving up the knives is like symbolically is a much more meaningful action, you know. It's like, but you know, meaningful... like someone has to put down their knives first in order for there to be peace, and you know, it's like no one wants it to be them, wants it to be the other person. But so the action of putting your knives down, you being the first one to do it, is like, you know, the first step toward like peace kind of thing.
And again, if there was, you know, warring factions between two towns, then yeah, that context perfectly makes sense. But with the bandanas, it was, you know, it was a assault that was set up on the side of the road, you know? Like there was never any negotiation. They were going to kill them and take their stuff. And that's how the bandanas like have always been from the little bit we got from Gil before. So like it's like she is adopting Alex's mentality that the world is innocent and ignoring the fact that it isn't innocent, which makes like I don't know how that's a good lesson to end the entire series on.
Well, she's not ignoring it. She's doing it despite that fact, right? It's also worth noting she's the one that she strikes the first blow with the bandana ambush. She kills the guy in the tree first, right? But absent that, it's despite that. She looks at that violence and she looks at the danger in the world and she decides on like radical vulnerability. And she's like, well, I refuse to be a participant in this violence. Like you know what I mean? Like it's choosing to be vulnerable and choosing to not have this, like, I think literally in a very literal sense, I completely understand what you're saying, but I think it's sort of going, okay, even given the fact that there is violence out there, it is like a radical thing to be like, and I refuse to participate in that, you know?
Yeah. And like that's why I started off saying like this episode was perfect, even though like I disagree with so much of it.
Yeah.
Because I love the idea of like, yes, I'm not going to interact with the violence and life is peaceful now. While on the other hand, I'm like, they're about to get attacked by bandits and you have no more knives. Like, what are you doing?
I did super think that you were going to be like, this logically doesn't track. That's so funny. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I think this is what stories can do, right? Which is like have these like thematic conclusions that don't necessarily need to track like logically or literally. And they can say things about life that we might say, well, practically that seems like it doesn't make sense. But, you know, I think that the difficulty too is like we super don't have enough context for like that bandit attack and like how frequent or like common that is. I think there are other ways that you could write around this that would make it feel more logically kind of sound for you, Darth. I just think this show is like far more interested in like the emotional truth of it than the logical truth, if that makes sense. Even if I do think it logically still makes sense.
It was very much a retrospective. In the moment, everything was just everything was vibing and giving up the knives is good, and then you know, like after the fact, it was when I was going back and thinking about it. And I'm like, did that make sense? So I guess like it achieved everything that it was trying to achieve, and I just have to focus on that reading of it versus my more literal one that I'm not supposed to do because that wasn't the point of the point of what they were writing.
The entire show literally teaches you to read it one way, and you're like, actually, CinemaSins, if there are really bad, it's like. But it's funny. The Walking Dead actually explores that with, oh god, I'm gonna forget the character's name. But there's a character in that, I think Morgan, who becomes a pacifist after the end of the world, and then like his pacifism and like refusal to kill gets like repeatedly tested until he snaps and like has that logical realization, Darth, which is like, actually, it's the fucking apocalypse. You have to kill people. You have to be willing to do it. And it does a pretty good job of that, but it does take 3 seasons of TV. So like you need a lot of text, like page room to make that feel like a realistic realization for a character that does decide that they're going to be a pacifist or whatever.
I mean, this doesn't help with that progression of logic, but just you need to have that parallel of Kirsten giving up the knife, so that Tyler can also make the same decision to give up the knife and produce meaning.
And do a play.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember the exact quote because I've read one recently that I just adored, and about pacifism, and I think it was something along the lines of being a pacifist doesn't mean that you're not willing to fight. It means that it's not something that you jump to do as a first resort. Something like that. Anyway, that was a lot of talk centered around knives that we didn't have to, but
Wouldn't be this show if we didn't. Yes. One of my favorite moments of this episode is where Kirsten finally like sits down with Clark and she's like basically arguing with him about doing the play. And she tells Arthur that she tells Clark that Arthur gave her the book, and he has this like Clark's face just it goes through about 10 emotions when he realizes that Kirsten is Kiki. It's such a great
And
moment.
you said there is no way he remembers her.
I know.
You said that in one of our recordings.
I got you. I got you, boys. I did a trick on you. Yeah.
Oh, that
And
was
that's when
on purpose. Okay.
Yeah, well, because he doesn't know that Kirsten is Kiki, so he actually doesn't remember Kirsten. He remembers her as Kiki. Because that's what
I love that scene. That's like one of the payoffs you're waiting for, like the entire show.
It's so
It
good.
happens, and it's as good as you want it to be.
But it completely changes his mind. He immediately is like, well, I'm going to be Claudius then.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He's so self-important. I love it.
He really is. He's just the worst. But also, like, the look on his face when he sees the comic, and then the fact that we now know how he felt about Miranda, I think it just adds so much weight to that realization as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, man, you just nail the payoff, and I was like, God damn, so good. And yeah, then we get so we get the play, and I think it's really hard to make Hamlet this legible. And this show does a really interesting thing, which is it basically uses Tyler's life story to like make you understand Hamlet, even if you don't know what they're saying on stage. You know, that moment where he has Clark at gunpoint, knife point. And there's just this like, you know, complete discharge of emotion between them. And Clark basically like whispers like, I loved him too, Tyler. Which is super rough. Like, it's so emotional. But like this idea that at the end of the day, the thing that actually connects them was Arthur. And like, even if he was an imperfect friend and like an imperfect father, he is the thing they have in common. And they both loved him. And that's the thing that, you know, stays Tyler's hand effectively, is that they had this person in common that they both loved, and he chooses to, you know, to be kind. And yeah, they work through their trauma with art. It is literally art therapy at the end of the day.
Yeah. I need it broken down for me a little bit, like that line where he says, I loved him too. So because what is he mad at Clark for? Like, effectively like abandoning him, you know, like not, because, you know, he overhears Clark saying, oh, Tyler needs to go. Is it because, you know, he was his Uncle Clark, you know, he was supposed to take care of him. And, you know, Tyler obviously like sort of like loves and mythologizes his dad. You know, supposedly he didn't see him that often. But he, you know, he talks fondly about him. Does Tyler think Clark betrayed Arthur somehow? What is that line meant to say?
I think that Tyler kind of views Clark as failing Arthur in some way, and I'm not super clear on like how, but that Clark being this guy who's like, you know, I'll take care of you, like whatever happens, you know, at the end of the world, like, you know, I'm your Uncle Clark, and then proceeds to sort of repeat all of the same mistakes that Arthur did, which was like lie and sort of do all these little like manipulations and stuff like that, and get too focused on the past and like, you know, never quite be living in the moment type of thing. I think maybe like Tyler views Clark as failing failing to live up to what Tyler thinks Arthur could have been, or something. Like, I think it's something like that. Yeah, it's like that Clark just doesn't live up to some standard that Tyler has in his head of like who Arthur was. And then when Clark says, "I loved him too, Tyler," it's like, because in that scene, it's Hamlet talking about his dead dad, basically. And Hamlet
It's
threatening...
the connecting thread between all the characters.
Yeah. And he's threatening to kill Claudius. And Clark's like, "I love him too," obviously being like, you know, Tyler's dad. And it's like, that also is what happens in the play, because it was his fucking brother. It's like, yeah, I loved him too, and like, but I had to kill him. Like, I didn't have a choice. It was the position I found myself in. And yeah, I think that perhaps it's messy, and I don't have a clean reading on it. That's kind of why I like it, is that it's not super clear what it's supposed to mean, but I think it's in that vicinity. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like, it's like, you know, I'm right there with you. Like, I'm intertwined in your life. Like, you know, I was, you know, I know, I understand the significance that Arthur has in your life because he also had the same significance in my life, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a gravity to his presence, and like, he shaped everyone here. Like, he is the thing that connects everybody in this moment, and it's brought everyone together for this moment. It's like, yeah, like, I loved him too. Like, so, you know, as did Kirsten, as did Miranda, as did Elizabeth. You know, their love for Arthur is the thing that connects them all. You know, it's the invisible string between them. But at a literal sense, I don't know. I'm sure. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like, I would really love to know what people think of that line. I think it's such a potent moment too. The prophet is just like, he's so emotionally tortured by this moment, because he's got a real knife, like, and he's got the knife that was used to kill Frank, that Alex gave him. And so instead of a prop knife, there's this potential for her to actually kill him, which I thought was such a good twist. And I love that Kirsten doesn't stop him. She sort of trusts him to make the right decision. Real gamble. That could have gone real wrong real quick. But I like that she's like, nah, he's not going to do anything.
And yeah, I like how, because Alex gives him the knife with that thought, right? That like, he's going to make a decision, and it's going to be like a watershed moment. You know, it's going to either like heal him, or it's going to be the end of him, kind of thing.
Yeah. And either way, she gets a resolution on who this guy is.
Yeah.
Which is
she's kind of discompassionately like unattached to the outcome of this. She's like, yeah, fucking take the knife, bro. Like,
do it. I don't care.
like, it's not my relationship. Like, you figure it out.
Yeah, it is weirdly selfish, isn't it?
Yeah.
God, she's such a weird character.
And then the other thing about this scene is, did you feel like Clark's acting was not that great?
Yeah, but like,
Well, he is not that great of an actor, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Like, it's such a good like resolution to his entire story. Like, in all the episodes, it's about him, you know, and what he thinks of himself as an actor and stuff like that. And then it's like, oh yeah, he's like not like the most amazing actor after all.
Just mid at best. Yeah. Such a good choice. And the fact that like he's so ill-suited to Claudius as well is so funny.
A big part of that may just be Tyler himself, because like that was a amazing performance. And it may have just made Clark like pale in comparison, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Which is the same relationship that Clark had with Arthur, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that he initially resented about both Arthur and then later Tyler, is like, these dudes just have something that he doesn't, right? They are just likable, and they are magnetic, and they are charismatic in just a way he isn't. And it's like here he just surrenders himself to that.
I don't think there's anything in there to tell us, but I mean, you could imagine that Clark is seeing Arthur in the eyes of Tyler right there at that moment, and all of the different emotions that be going through his head at that time, in addition to "Don't kill me."
Mm. Well, that might be why he says I loved him too, because that's what he's thinking about.
Forgive my Shakespeare ignorance, but is this the same scene that Kirsten does in like episode 2?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like either they didn't take it as far, or they did it differently, because in episode 2 it kind of just ends with her doing a sad monologue, like to the camera, sort of. But there's no like knifed anyone's throat kind of thing.
So that
yeah, I have in my notes. Did they go off script?
No.
Wait for David.
The bit in the bit in the second episode happens before this. So like basically the scene, we just cut before that happens in episode 2. Because you get Hamlet's monologue where he's like talking about his inky cloak and he's like really upset or whatever. And then Gertrude pushes him and she keeps pushing him and she keeps pushing him. And that's when he threatens Claudius. And she's like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, that's the king. Like, you need to fucking chill out. Which is the scene that we get here. So it's just that the camera cuts in episode 2 before we get to that moment. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I was like, how many times is like Hamlet sitting on the stairs and then he comes pouting down the stairs to start saying his lines?
That's most of the play, to be honest.
Hamlet is always waiting stage left.
He literally is. He's all like, half of his thing is just like watching other people and then coming on stage and having a big sulk about it. It's great. Yeah, but no, it is the same scene. Yeah, it's just this big emotional climax. And the next thing I have here is, I guess the two little bits that are left over is Kirsten dealing with the kid, who has the landmine.
I wrote Kirsten tries to de-radicalize a suicide bomber.
Yeah. And I've written down here, kid with landmine, not good. Kirsten uses the book to disarm her. And Darth is annoyed because how can these kids read?
Ooh. Almost. Okay, to be fair to you, that is literally a thought that entered my brain as soon as she was showing the kid the book.
Mm-hmm.
But then I immediately also let it go, because I was like, it's a comic book. The kid is looking at the pictures. It doesn't matter that she can't read because she has everything memorized anyway. So she doesn't need to read the words. So you're right, but also I let that go pretty quickly. The bigger issue I had was just what the comic meant to the kid. Because like you literally use the word disarm, and I think the idea is supposed to be that the book told something to the girl, so she went and showed it to all of the other kids, so then all of the other kids didn't set off the bombs that they brought. But why? I don't know.
Because it proves that the prophecy's not real.
It's written down in the holy book that proves it is real.
No, because she's like, it's just a comic book. It's just a book. Like, it's not, he's not, you gotta remember, he's pretending to hear Station 11. Like, he's built up all this additional mythos that all these things are gonna happen. And it's just like, none of that's true. It's just based on a book. Right? That's how I understand it anyway. Is like, that, yeah, it's like, it proves the prophecy is based on this book, which means that it's not real.
I mean, that makes sense, because like I said, I interpreted it to mean that the girl taking the book and she was explaining to the kids this means we don't have to blow up the whatever. But then also, it sounded like the kids were just told to bring the mines and make a ring around the airport, and then that will create a landing pad. It didn't sound like they had instructions to set off the mines, so I was like this episode was perfect, but then there was stuff like this where I'm like, I don't understand, but maybe I don't have to understand. And so I just kind of let it go, and yeah. I stopped trying and I just vibed with it, and I was like, okay, it's fine. The kid ran off and everything is happy.
And everyone's fine. And there's 1,000 kids now. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that bit at the end where Clark's like, what the fuck?
It's so funny.
He's like,
yeah. So good.
And it was a really interesting point was that Kirsten doesn't do anything. This is after she's given up her knives, which is the symbol of her giving up like aggression, right? So, or giving up violence, or whatever word you want to use. So I was almost yelling at the TV, what are you doing? You know that there's all of these kids coming who have bags full of explosives, and for the first time in the entire show, you're ignoring a threat. I was like livid about it. But it's supposed to be symbolizing that she's just going to like go with the flow of life and not try to fight it anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, like just let it go. Like it's fine. Like it's fine to just be kind to each other, and like that is your first priority now. And that like art is your first priority, and you know all these complicated things.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is one of those things where it's like you can't think about it too much because then it just like pokes holes in it or whatever. Like there's a shot like towards the end where all of the kids are just taking their bags of mines and just dumping them in a heap, and Clark is looking at it with his head cocked over, and he's like, what's going on here? And I'm like, yeah, that's the stuff that Kirsten should have told you about like 2 days ago when your entire building almost got blown up. But she was like, nah, it ain't nothing but a thing.
Well, I don't know that she knows. I guess it depends. My assumption is that she doesn't know the kids are coming.
No, the girl tells her. She says, the torch was lit. We're supposed to bring the signals and place them around, and then it will show the ship where to land.
Right.
So Kirsten knows that all of the kids are coming, and they're going to surround the entire building with the mines, but then Kirsten doesn't do anything.
Well, she kind of does. She de-radicalizes a kid, and the kid goes and de-radicalizes the other kids. That's doing something.
Yeah. That's what I was like, okay, I'm going to let it go because I'm vibing with it, but I still don't like it.
I like that you're like, it's good, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's a critic brain right there. It's such a weird little moment, and it ends up like kind of causing her to bump into the trooper like singing a song for Sarah. It's like her favorite song or whatever. And then we get Kirsten and Jeevan reuniting, which is
which we skipped the bit when Jeevan was with Sarah when she died.
Yeah.
Right. And then he sees the poster of the performance, and then it looks like he leaves and you see Kirsten in the background at that exact time, and you're like, oh, are they going to see each other? But then he turns and walks off and you think it's out of the building, and you think he's gone, and they were this close, and they didn't get to see each other again. And at the time, I was like, they're going to do it. They're going to tease us like this, put them together, and then not have them meet on purpose, because then that'll show like the growth that Kirsten is having. Right?
Yeah.
And so then it gets to that end when they meet, and I'm like, I almost like stood up to cheer. Like,
I was just ugly crying. It's such a beautiful moment. And I love how they both can't believe that it's happening. there's like this just like a couple of seconds of like complete disbelief that they're seeing each other again. It's so great.
And it's truly unique, like, because these are it's not the usual trope of characters who get separated and then find each other and, oh my god, you're safe. These people have they accepted like long ago that they were never going to see each other again. They just moved on. They have lives with like such different priorities now, and then it's just like the absolute like snail, not snail's pace, but the slow crawling pace of this scene about how they just never thought they'd see this person again, and they're standing right here, and it's like, what an absolute like lovely surprise this is, kind of thing. Like, they just nailed like every single emotion in this scene.
Well, a huge part of that was just the recognizing each other, like literally, because even though all he did was grow like a huge beard, like he still does look really different. And then also there's something about his demeanor, just even the way that he stood wasn't Jeevan. Does that make sense? Like it's a different version of the man, which I could see being hard to recognize. And then obviously there's very little about her that he would recognize at all. And like the dad joke I kept waiting for was when they get close together and she's like, Jeevan, and he goes, I have a wife, I'm sorry. Because he doesn't know who this woman is.
Good lord.
No, okay.
Sometimes your brain is upsetting to know about. It is really just like, I mean, these last like couple minutes are just stunning. We also get like, just before this is happening, we get the Miranda cross cut of like as she's dying on the phone, and then we get a momentary flash of her like looking at the undersea on the beach, and the kind of they have that moment where they reunite, and as you say, Pat, the pacing is just like spot on, and we kind of get 3 resolutions, right? So we get that the prophet asks Elizabeth to go with him, like to leave with him, finally, because she kind of makes the point of like, well, if you asked me the first time, I would have gone with you, and so this time he asks her and she says yes. Tyler then asks Alex to go with him, and she says yes. And so Kirsten takes over the troop and goes with them, and then Jeevan goes back home, but Kirsten promises to add the airport to the circle, and then I think also Jeevan's like home, wherever that is. And they have this conversation at the very end where, he's like, I was just supposed to walk you home. Like how have we come this far? And they have a little bit of resolution between themselves. And Kirsten says the line, you walked her home. And I just lost it. Like I was already on the edge from like the previous scene of like, but like that line in particular, it's just like, God damn it. It's just such a hopeful show. I was so moved by how willing this ending is to be like a happy ending. It's so it's so radical in its understanding of like how we can all resolve these things that we have to work through, and then life keeps going on and you have to make choices and you're still going to lose people. They all part ways at the end, right? They all go their separate ways, but that's okay. Like that's just life. Like that happens. It's all logistics, right? It's how things get from A to B, and it's not about the straightest path, it's about the right path. And that's just life.
That's very good.
That's just life, man.
Just
rough.
Again, the mentioning the pacing again, that ending when they're walking along was so slow, and I kept thinking how many other shows would have filled it with more exposition, and it didn't need it at all, because like a lot of it was just them kind of like being awkward around each other because they, didn't know these adult versions.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like a lesser show would have had more crying and swelling music.
Yeah, it's quite understated.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one just had the tuba.
Yeah, it's also funny. The first half of this episode is so heavy with score, and then as like after the Hamlet scene, it all just kind of drops away for the most part, and it's like diegetic music in the second half, which is kind of interesting. Something I noticed.
Yeah.
So can I tell you something really weird? This is not at all how the book ends. Like in any way, shape, or form. Like,
Are they all dead? What's the
basically, Kirsten and Jeevan don't reunite, and Kirsten kills the prophet. Really unceremoniously. She just like knives him in the back, basically. So,
okay, so
digest that.
So St. John Mandel is like, she and I are on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Because I said you gotta stab the dude.
I mean, there's other differences, right? Like, in the book, Elizabeth goes with Tyler when he first leaves. He doesn't fake his death; he just leaves. There's a bunch of other like things like that which change the lay of the land. But yeah, she just she kills the prophet. And yeah, they sort of go back to the wheel. And I suppose the other thing too in the book is that he's much more of an overt villain. He doesn't get a lot of the he gets some of the complication that he gets in the show, but far less of it. And yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I mean, Mandel will write about this in the future, so I don't want to like spoil what she ends up thinking of this ending in the show and the book respectively. But like, I think it's telling that this ending is essentially net new and has to be completely written from scratch. And when Kirsten and Jeevan do reunite at the very, very end of the book, it's for like one conversation. And it's like really touching, but this, I think, does a much more considered job of selling that emotion. I suppose the book is also less about... Oh, the other big thing, which you will not believe is true, unless you've read the book, is that at the end of the world, in the book, Kirsten doesn't go with Jeevan. He leaves her on the train station.
And then what happens?
And then they reunite like 20 years later at the very end of the book. They just have completely different end of the world.
None of the stuff in the cabin, like none. What about the apartment with Frank?
No. Jeevan just leaves.
Okay, well this is
Jeevan
just sounding like an entirely different story now.
I know, it's so radically different. That's part of what makes the show really interesting. Is it's just so different. Yeah. And
okay, well,
yeah, Frank,
that change to the ending makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, Frank kills himself in the book because he knows that like Jeevan won't leave him and he can't go. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, because like the Kirsten Jeevan, like, you know, the show has like had many stories going on, but like you could just feel that the Jeevan Kirsten one was the main one, you know, the salient one with the most gut feeling behind it. And so yeah, I was like, I don't know, I was just beyond happy to finally like see that like this show was also on the same page, that like, yes, like this is the core emotional like relationship in the show, and that's what it's going to end with. Yeah,
no, absolutely, it makes complete sense to make the show about this as well. I think they cast just three brilliant actors with the young Kirsten and the old Kirsten and Jeevan. Like they nailed the assignment. Yeah, the changes make complete sense to me, and just let Somerville tell a particular story that is similar to the book but different enough that, you know, I wasn't sitting here the whole time being like, and they've changed that from the book and that's bad. Like, they were all deliberate, interesting and meaningful choices that felt like Somerville had a thing he was trying to say, if that makes sense, as opposed to changing stuff arbitrarily or just replicating the book for the sake of replicating the book. Yeah.
I've been sitting over here thinking about like a week later, and Elizabeth is out in the woods with 1,000 kids, and she's like, "Why did I agree to this?"
Yeah, this sucks. That's actually pretty funny. Yeah, I also like that we don't, like, to your point about exposition before, like, we don't know where they're going or what they're going to do. I actually really like that. I like that it's just like, yeah, they're leaving. You know?
Oh, the kids, yeah, true.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know.
I do like how I do like the implication of normalcy in regards to Kirsten and Jeevan. Like, they, you know, Jeevan just says, hey, like, next time you're at the airport, I'll bring my kids and we'll come see you play. Like, supposedly that just happens, you know, just life goes on, and they just see each other, you know, a few more times after that, and, you know, they still love each other and not much changes. Like, I think it's kind of a beautiful ending.
I think the same with Alex, right? Where, like, there's this moment where she's like, I love you, Kirsten. She's like, I love you. And then she's like, oh, wait, now? Like, this moment of like, oh, wait, you're leaving now? And then it just happens. And it's like, and it's over. Yeah, really understated. Like you said before, Pat, I think a worse show would be like, swell the music and like have everyone crying or whatever. And it's like, no, like, this is just, life just goes on sometimes. You know?
Yeah, there's something really realistic about that, about how you'll, like, you might have had friends in high school that you were insanely close with, and then you see each other again after 15, 20 years, and you have, you know, an amazing dinner together, an amazing talk, and then you say goodbye, and you're not going to see each other for another decade or something. And at the beginning, Kirsten didn't know how to do that. She was like, either you hang on to it or you lose it forever. And it's a weird little, very realistic experience of the growth that relationships, the different types of relationships, I guess, that you have as you age.
Yeah, exactly.
Another, I like the what they talk about as well, Jeevan and Kirsten on that road, and Jeevan talks about, because, you know, it's very pertinent to their relationship, right? He's talking about raising kids, and he's like, oh yeah, that's the great thing about living on an island, so they can't get far, they can't run away.
Yeah. Which is really fun. I also dead set, I was like, is that the fucking island from, anyway, you'll see. I was like, it was one of those details of like, if they were writing a follow-up show, which it sounds like at the time some of it was, that was one of those things where, like, if you know the books, you're like, is that a plot thing when he lives on an island? It could be. So I'm interested to see what you guys think of that Glass Hotel, because I definitely clocked it and went, interesting.
I thought you were talking about the Yellow Jackets again.
Well, Yellow Jackets doesn't take place on an island. But anyway, I don't want to talk about Yellow Jackets anymore. A pretty average show. People seem to like it. It's like a classic J.J. Abrams mystery box show, and I just don't know that they've figured out what's in the box. Anyway, yeah, it's also the tone of that conversation, I think, where it's like very it's like what Darth was just saying. Like, they just immediately fall into a pattern, even though they haven't seen each other in so long. There's a familiarity there and a warmth there that didn't really exist before. Because Kirsten really didn't like Jeevan, or Jeevan thought that Kirsten didn't like him, which is different than someone actually not liking you, I think. And yeah, I just like that they immediately fall into this like warmth, and they just talk about like where their lives are at, you know. and that she goes back with the troop. Like, she's not like, I'll come with us, or she's not like, oh, like, I'll come with you. She's like, no, like, I have a job to do, and you have a job to do, and like, these are our lives, and this is just how it is.
When Jeevan was looking at the wheel, like the map of their tour, I wonder what he was thinking, because the thought popped into my head of like, what if he's looking at the map and realizing like, fuck, I was right there this whole time, like for 20 years. Like I must have like, just missed her like so many times kind of thing. Because like he walked there as well. Like he can't live to that far. Like, and that whole area of the show takes place can't be like that big,
Yeah, I mean, it's around the Great Lakes, so I assume that he lives, question mark, on an island on one of the Great Lakes, so like it can't be that far. But he does get in a boat, to be fair to, like there's a boat at some point to cross the water. I think that's probably right. I think like they didn't really go that far away from each other in the end. Yeah. That's like, again, to your point earlier, Pat, about like the entropy of it all. That's just sometimes how it goes. You don't realize that you're like living 2 doors down from someone that you went to university with or something, and you just never cross paths.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Another detail I like is that Jeevan is just like, presumably he's just raising that other kid that isn't his as his own. Like they're just like, you just see that kid in the background, and you're like, oh, of course, like he's just raising that other kid that she was pregnant with at the beginning. That's nice.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Well, good ending, good great TV show. But yeah, it's been nice to talk about something that is good. And it's just like, like I think is like an unalloyed, to me, like this is like a perfect show for me. It's the exact kind of writing that I love, and it's like pitched in exactly the right ways. And I was saying in an earlier episode that I've even like been watching some of Somerville's other stuff. I'm really enjoying The Leftovers as well. So if you liked
is
this
that
show,
Somerville? Is that the same? Is that Patrick Somerville? Leftovers.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What's that show about?
It's another end of the world show where basically one night a bunch of people disappear from, I think it's like around the world, but it's specifically centered on this one town. And a bunch of people just like disappear. And it's about like how the town reacts to that. So it's kind of like, it's like if the Marvel Snap happened, but in like a small town in the US.
But isn't it like 2% of the population or something? Like
it's something like that.
Yeah.
But the great twist is that like the main character, who's like the sheriff, it's like his wife is one of the people that vanishes. And yeah, it's all about them trying to like rebuild and failing to rebuild, and like all the consequences that come with that. It's a really interesting show. I'm not sure if it's good or not yet. I'm not far enough in, but it's compelling.
Yeah, I watched the pilot. Didn't really compel me.
I think it has a bit of that early 2000s thing of just like it feels like a TV show from that era, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It feels like when TV shows were suddenly like, oh, we can cater to adult audiences.
Yeah. And it's just like a little bit gritty for no reason, and you're like, I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pulling up some like screenshots to try to see if it looked familiar, and like right when you were saying like it's gritty for no reason, and the poster is a guy angrily punching a concrete wall.
It sure is. Yeah. And the tagline is "We're still here," which is yikes. Yeah. But no, I think it's a pretty good show. Yeah, I mean, good stuff. I think that's everything I have for Station 11. Anything else in your guys' notes, or are we happy to wrap up?
Not happy.
Well, that will do it for Station 11. Next time we're going to be talking about, we're doing like a little bonus mid-season special where we're going to be doing a bit of a roundtable on The Last of Us Season 2, which means that Patrick's going to have to watch that at some point, which would be interesting. I'm trying to get Sam and Danielle involved. I know Danielle's definitely down. I'm just trying to work out calendars. So that'll be a big roundtable. I might end up splitting it into 2 parts. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But that's kind of our sort of mid-season bonus. And then, as I said last episode, we're sort of doing a little mini unit on Emily St. John Mandel. So then we'll be reading Glass Hotel. And I'll give you guys the stopping points for that as we get closer to that. So it's very exciting. Yeah, great way to kick off our Apocalypse unit by covering a really good TV show. So good job to everyone that worked on the show. As always, these things take a village. So we appreciate that they made this happen somehow during the middle of the pandemic as well. So impressive TV show. That's it for the show. Patrick, if people want to find more of you on the internet, where can they do that?
People can find me on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. Method to the Madness is what our podcast is called. We have a website, amttm.com. You can find our episodes and socials from there. And wait, I just need to send you off with one thing real quick. Hold on.
What's he doing? No, what's he done?
Okay. All right.
Oh.
There we go. Please include that, David.
Okay.
The audience, the views will spike dramatically.
Big stretch.
Yeah.
Big stretch. That's the kind of views that you don't get on us just chatting, you know?
Exactly.
That was a really good freeze frame. Darth, where can people find you? This, I think probably you might have something out by the time this goes up.
Oh lordy, I hope so.
It's a good one.
YouTube Darth, DARTH''. Yeah, the one that I'm dedicated that the script will be finished this weekend because it's super close. And that's on how empires take over from how democracies fall.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all relevant.
Nope. Just because, like, for no reason, we decided that was a good thing to do. So, for no reason. Yeah. Go check it out. As always, linked in the show notes. If you made it this far, you already know what it is. Patreon.com/zeroindent to support us. These shows take a lot of work. It's a lot of editing. It's a lot of prep. It's a lot of planning. So we appreciate any support you can give us. Even just giving us a follow on Patreon pushes us up the Patreon algorithm so more people find us when they are browsing. If you want to grab our merch, you can head to underink.press where you can grab this season's Zero Indent tee. That's everything I've got to plug. We appreciate the heck out of any likes, comments, reviews that you guys give us. Again, that's the only way that we grow the show and help more people find what we do. So that's going to do it. We'll be back with you next time to talk about The Last of Us Season 2. And I actually didn't copy down the ending, but it's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world. Zero Indent is an independent publication dedicated to studying works of genre fiction, brought to you by our subscribers. Head to patreon.com/zeroindent to learn more and consider supporting us. Our theme song is The Swan by Alon Peretz. Our podcast cover art is by Crystal Hatay. Everything else is written, directed, and edited by me, DC McNeil. You can find our merch and books at underink.press and everything we do at zeroindent.com.